A storm rages over Ashburn Manor, where a vault, sealed for a century, hides a secret so powerful it could shatter a family or change the world. Hercule Poirot steps into a web of greed, betrayal, and ghostly whispers where every shadow hides a clue and every face masks a lie. What lies behind the unbreakable lock? Is it treasure, curse, or something far darker? Time is running out, and the truth will demand a price. Will Poirot unravel the mystery before it consumes them all? Chapter 1. The enigmatic invitation autumn wind howled through the streets of London, tugging at the edges of Hercule Poirot's meticulously pressed overcoat. As he stepped out of his apartment at Whitehaven Mansions, the sky was a sullen, gray, heavy with the promise of rain, and the air carried a chill that seemed to whisper secrets. Poirot adjusted his hat, ensuring it sat at precisely the right angle, and raised his umbrella as a precaution. His small, precise steps echoed on the pavement as he made his way to the waiting taxi, his mind already turning over the peculiar letter he had received that morning. The letter, delivered by a courier who vanished as quickly as he appeared, was written on heavy cream paper, embossed with the crest of the Ashburn family, a stag rampant beneath a crescent moon. It was addressed to Monsieur Hercule Poirot, detective extraordinaire, a flourish that both amused and intrigued him. The sender, Lord Reginald Ashburn, requested his presence at Ashburn Manor in the remote countryside of Kent to address a matter of utmost delicacy and importance. The letter hinted at a family vault, locked for generations, containing an artifact of immeasurable value and profound mystery. No further details were provided, save for an urgent plea to arrive by the following evening. Poirot, never one to resist a puzzle wrapped in enigma, had accepted the challenge with a spark of curiosity in his sharp green eyes. The taxi ride to the train station was uneventful, though Poirot's mind buzzed with possibilities. Who was Lord Ashburn? Why had he chosen Poirot, a Belgian detective, over the myriad English investigators at his disposal? And what was this vault, sealed so tightly that it required his singular genius to unravel? As the taxi pulled up to Charing Cross Station, Poirot paid the driver with exact change, his fingers deftly counting the coins, and stepped onto the platform. The train to Kent awaited, its steam curling into the damp air like the tendrils of a mystery yet to unfold. The journey to Ashburn Manor was a study in contrasts. The train rattled through London's smoky outskirts, where factories belched soot into the sky, before giving way to the rolling green hills of Kent, where ancient oaks stood sentinel over patchwork fields. Poirot, seated in a first-class carriage, sipped a cup of tea served, to his mild disapproval, lukewarm, and reviewed the letter once more. The handwriting was elegant but hurried, as if written under duress. The mention of the vault intrigued him most. It has not been opened in a century, Lord Ashburn had written, and its secrets are known only to the dead. Poirot's mustache twitched. The dead, he knew, often had ways of speaking through the living, if one knew how to listen. As the train pulled into the small station at Ashburn Village, Poirot noted the quaintness of the place, a cluster of thatched cottages, a single pub, and a church with a weathered spire. A chauffeured Rolls-Royce awaited him, its driver a stoic man in a crisp uniform who introduced himself as Hawkins, the Ashburn family butler. Hawkins was tall, with a face carved from stone, his eyes betraying a flicker of unease as he took Poirot's valise. "Lord Ashburn is expecting you, sir," he said, his voice low and formal. "The manor is a short drive." The road to Ashburn Manor wound through dense woods, the trees arching overhead to form a tunnel of shadow. Poirot observed the landscape with keen interest, noting the signs of neglect, overgrown hedges, a crumbling stone wall, a gate rusted at the hinges. The manor itself, when it came into view, was a grand but faded relic of Georgian architecture, its stone facade weathered by time, its windows like dark eyes watching his approach. Ivy clung to the walls, and the air carried the scent of damp earth and old secrets. Hawkins led Poirot through the heavy oak doors into a cavernous hall, where, A chandelier glittered faintly above a marble floor. Portraits of stern-faced Ashburns lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow Poirot as he crossed the threshold. A fire crackled in a massive hearth, but it did little to dispel the chill that permeated the air. Waiting at the foot of a grand staircase was Lord Reginald Ashburn himself, a man in his late 50s, tall and lean, with silver hair and a demeanor that suggested both authority and exhaustion. His handshake was firm but brief. His smile tight, Monsieur Poirot, he said, his voice resonant but tinged with strain. I am deeply grateful you've come. Our family is in need of your unique talents. Poirot inclined his head, his eyes scanning Lord Ashburn's face. The pleasure, it is mine, Lord Ashburn. But perhaps you will enlighten Hercule Poirot as to the nature of this mystery. Your letter. It was most intriguing, but lacking in the details. Reginald's expression tightened. All in good time, monsieur. First, allow me to introduce my family. They are integral to the matter at hand. He gestured toward a drawing room, where three figures awaited. Lady Evelyn Ashburn, Reginald's wife, was a striking woman in her early 50s. Her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon, her eyes cool and assessing. She offered Poirot a polite nod, but no warmth, her fingers toying with a string of pearls around her neck. Charles Ashburn, their son, was a handsome man in his 30s, with sharp features and an air of restless ambition. His handshake was overly firm, as if to assert dominance, and his smile carried a hint of mockery. Clara Ashburn, the daughter, was younger, perhaps 25, with dark eyes that seemed to hold a world of secrets. She greeted Poirot with a soft, hesitant smile, her hands clasped tightly before her. Dinner was served in a dining room that spoke of faded opulence, crystal glassware dulled by dust, silverware tarnished at the edges, a tablecloth fraying it. It seems the meal roast pheasant, potatoes, and a rather indifferent claret was overseen by Hawkins, who moved with the silent precision of a man accustomed to discretion. Conversation was stilted, with Reginald attempting to steer it toward pleasantries while Charles made pointed remarks about the family's dwindling finances. Lady Evelyn remained largely silent, her gaze fixed on some distant point, while Clara fidgeted with her napkin, her eyes darting to Poirot as if seeking an ally. After dinner, Reginald led Poirot to the library, a vast room lined with leather-bound volumes and lit by a single lamp. The air smelled of old paper and wax. It is here, Reginald said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, that I must share the heart of the matter. He motioned toward a heavy iron door set into the far wall, its surface etched with intricate designs of stags and moons. The door was sealed with a lock unlike any Poirot had seen, a complex mechanism of gears and dials, gleaming as if untouched by time. This is the Ashburn vault, Reginald said. My great-grandfather, Lord Edmund, designed it himself. It has not been opened since his death in 1825. No key exists, or so we believe. Inside lies something of immense value, an artifact, perhaps, or a relic. The family legends are vague, but they speak of power, of destiny. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he studied the lock. And why, Lord Ashburn, do you wish to open it now? Reginald hesitated, his fingers brushing the edge of the door. There are pressures, financial, familial. My son believes the contents could restore our fortunes. My daughter believes they hold a different kind of significance. And he trailed off, his face shadowed. I fear what may happen if we do not act. There have been incidents, strange occurrences. I need your mind, Monsieur Poirot, to unravel this before it consumes us. Poirot nodded, his fingers tracing the cold metal of the lock. Very well. Hercule Poirot, he accepts your challenge. But I must warn you, Lord Ashburn, the truth. It is not always what one expects. As they left the library, Poirot caught a glimpse of Clara lingering in the hallway, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the vault door. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and Poirot felt a shiver that had little to do with the cold. The mystery of the locked vault had begun, and he sensed that its secrets were as dangerous as they were alluring. The night passed uneventfully, though Poirot slept lightly, his mind turning over the faces and words of the Ashburn family. Morning brought a gray dawn and a breakfast of cold toast and tea, served by a maid who avoided his gaze. Poirot decided to begin his investigation with the household staff, reasoning that servants often saw what their masters overlooked. He found Hawkins polishing silver in a small anteroom, his movements methodical but his eyes wary. "Monsieur Hawkins," Poirot began, his voice smooth as velvet, "you have served the Ashburns for many years. Tell me, what do you know of this vault?" Hawkins paused, his cloth hovering over a candlestick. "It's not my place to speak of such things, sir," he said, his tone guarded. "The vault's been locked since before my time. Old stories. That's all I know. Stories." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Of what kind, if I may ask?" Hawkins glanced around, as if fearing eavesdroppers. "They say it's cursed, sir. That what's inside brings ruin to those who seek it. My grandfather, he was butler here too, told me of noises, whispers, like coming from the vault at night. Said it was the dead, guarding their secrets." Poirot's mustache twitched. "And you, Monsieur Hawkins, do you believe these tales?" The butler's face hardened. "I believe in what I see, sir, and I've seen enough to know this house holds its share of troubles." Before Poirot could press further, a scream echoed through the manor, sharp and piercing. Hawkins dropped the candlestick, and Poirot was already moving, his small frame surprisingly agile as he followed the sound to the drawing room. There, Clara stood trembling, a shattered teacup at her feet, her eyes wide with fear. "It was there," she whispered, pointing to a window. "A face, watching me." Poirot crossed to the window, his keen eyes scanning the garden beyond. The grass was damp, but there were no footprints, no signs of an intruder. Yet Clara's fear was real, her hands shaking as she clutched her shawl. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said gently, "describe this face, if you please." "It was pale," she said, her voice barely audible, like a ghost. "But it was watching me. I'm sure of it." Reginald and Evelyn appeared, drawn by the commotion, followed by Charles, who looked more annoyed than concerned. "Clara, you're imagining things," Charles snapped. "This house makes everyone jumpy." Poirot held up a hand, silencing. "Non, Monsieur Charles. The imagination, it can be a window to the truth. Mademoiselle Clara, rest now. Hercule Poirot, he will investigate as the family dispersed." Poirot returned to the library, his mind racing. A locked vault, a priceless artifact, a family on the brink of ruin, and now a ghostly face at the window. The pieces were scattered, but Poirot knew they would form a pattern. If he could find the thread that connected them. He examined the vault door again, noting the precision of its craftsmanship, the absence of any visible keyhole. It was a puzzle worthy of his intellect, and he felt a thrill of anticipation. That afternoon, Poirot wandered the manor's grounds, his umbrella tapping the ground as he studied the layout. The gardens were overgrown, the statues moss-covered, but he noticed something curious, a faint path leading from the manor to a copse of trees. Following it, he found an old well, its stones crumbling, its depths hidden in shadow. Kneeling, he spotted a glint of metal, a small, ornate key, half buried in the dirt. It was delicate for the vault's lock, but its presence suggested someone had been here recently. Returning to the manor, Poirot sought out Clara, finding her in the conservatory, sketching in a leather-bound book. "Mademoiselle," he said, holding up the key, "do you recognize this?" Her eyes widened, but she shook her head. "No, Monsieur Poirot, but it looks old, like something from my great-grandfather's time." Poirot nodded, pocketing the key. "And this face you saw, it was perhaps familiar, a member of the household, or a stranger." Clara hesitated. her pencil pausing. I don't know. It was so quick. But it felt malevolent. Poirot left her to her sketching, his mind turning over the possibilities. The key, the face, the vault, they were pieces of a larger whole, and he sensed the answer lay not just in the physical clues but in the hearts of the Ashburns. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Poirot watched them closely, noting the undercurrents of tension, Evelyn's guarded glances, Charles's forced cheer, Clara's nervous fidgeting, Reginald's weary sighs. After dinner, Poirot returned to the library, determined to uncover more. He ran his fingers along the bookshelves, searching for anything out of place. His persistence was rewarded when a panel behind a row of books clicked open, revealing a small compartment. Inside was a bundle of letters, yellowed with age, tied with a faded ribbon. The topmost letter bore the crest of the Ashburn family and was addressed to Lord Edmund Ashburn. Poirot's pulse quickened as he read the opening lines. The relic must remain hidden, for its power is too great for mortal hands. The letters spoke of a secret society, the Order of the Crescent, tasked with guarding an artifact of ancient origin. The vault, it seemed, was not merely a family heirloom, but a sacred trust, one that Edmund had taken to his grave. The letters hinted at a code, a sequence of symbols needed to unlock the vault, but they were incomplete, as if someone had removed a crucial piece. As Poirot closed the compartment, he heard a soft creak behind him. Turning, he saw Charles standing in the doorway, his face pale. "Monsieur Poirot," Charles said, his voice tight. "What are you doing here?" Poirot smiled, his eyes never leaving Charles's face, merely exploring. "Monsieur Charles, the library. It is a treasure trove of knowledge." None. Charles's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Retreating into the shadows, Poirot watched him go, his mind cataloging the encounter, Charles's presence in the library, his unease at being caught. There was more to the young Ashburn than met the eye. As the clock struck midnight, Poirot sat in his room, the letters spread before him. The manor was silent, save for the distant howl of the wind. The mystery of the locked vault was deepening, its secrets entwined with the Ashburn family's past and present. Poirot's little gray cells worked tirelessly, piecing together the clues, the letter, the vault, the key, the face at the window, the hidden compartment. He knew the truth was close, but it was a truth that would require all his skill to uncover. The chapter closed with Poirot gazing out his window at the darkened estate, the silhouette of the manor looming against the stormy sky. Somewhere within those walls, or perhaps beyond them, lay the key to the vault and to the secrets that threatened to tear the Ashburn family apart. With a satisfied nod, he turned down his lamp, ready to face the next day's challenges, confident that Hercule Poirot would not be outwitted by a mystery, no matter how enigmatic. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Shadow. Hercule Poirot adjusted his perfectly tailored coat as he stepped into the grand dining hall of Ashburn Manor, his polished shoes clicking softly against the polished oak floor. The air was heavy with the scent of beeswax and old money, the kind of wealth that clung to the walls in the form of ancestral portraits and gleaming chandeliers. Yet, beneath the opulence, there was an undercurrent of unease, a tension that seemed to ripple through the household, like a draft through an ill-fitting window. The butler, Mr. Grayson, had shown him to his quarters with a deference that bordered on nervousness, his hands trembling slightly as he carried Poirot's modest valise. Now, as Poirot surveyed the room, he noted the faces of the Ashburn family, seated around the long mahogany table, their expressions as varied as the dishes lay before them. Lord Reginald Ashburn sat at the head, his silver hair catching the candlelight, his posture rigid with the weight of authority. His wife, Lady Evelyn, sat to his right, her pale hands folded primly in her lap, her eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the room's gilded walls. Charles, their son, lounged with a studied nonchalance, his sharp jaw set in a way that suggested impatience, perhaps ambition. Clara, the daughter, was quieter, her dark eyes darting between her family members as if searching for something unsaid. The table was set for a feast, but the atmosphere was anything but festive. Monsieur Poirot, Reginald began, his voice resonant yet strained. We are most grateful for your presence. This matter of the vault, it is, shall we say, a delicate affair? Poirot inclined his head, his mustache twitching slightly as he offered a polite smile. Delicate affairs, Lord Ashburn, are often the most intriguing. I am eager to learn more of this vault and its mysteries. Perhaps you might share what troubles you so. Reginald hesitated, his fingers tightening around the stem of his wine glass. The vault has been sealed since my grandfather's time. Its contents are significant, a family heirloom, you might say, of great value and greater consequence. I invited you here because I believe it is time to open it. Yet I fear what may come of it. Fear, monsieur. Poirot's eyes gleamed with interest. And what is it that inspires such fear? Reginald's gaze flickered to his family, then back to Poirot. There are stories, rumors, really about what lies within. Some say it is cursed, that it brought our family wealth, but at a terrible cost. I need a man of your intellect to uncover the truth before we proceed. Poirot nodded, his mind already turning over the possibilities. A cursed relic, a sealed vault, a family with secrets. So, how his little gray cells delighted in such a puzzle. Very well, Lord Ashburn. I shall begin my inquiries at once. Might I have the liberty to speak with your household? Of course, Reginald said, though his tone suggested reluctance. Grayson will assist you with anything you require. The meal proceeded with stilted conversation, the clink of silverware punctuating long silences. Poirot observed each family member closely. Lady Evelyn's smile was tight, her responses to his polite inquiries clipped and evasive. Charles spoke with a brash confidence, boasting of his plans to modernize the estate. Though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease when the vault was mentioned, Clara, meanwhile, was a study in restraint, her words measured, her glances sharp. Poirot noted the way her fingers toyed with a locket at her throat, a nervous habit that hinted at deeper thoughts. After dinner, Poirot requested a tour of the manor's lower levels, where the vault was housed. Grayson led him through a labyrinth of corridors, the air growing cooler and damper as they descended. The vault itself was an imposing structure, its iron door set into a stone wall, its surface etched with faint, weathered symbols that Poirot could not immediately decipher. There was no visible lock, no keyhole, only a smooth expanse of metal that seemed to defy intrusion. It has been thus for as long as I have served here, Grayson said, his voice low, as if fearful of being overheard by the very walls. No one has entered it in my lifetime, nor my father's before me. And yet, monsieur, you seem uneasy, Poirot remarked, his eyes narrowing. Is there something you wish to tell me? Grayson hesitated, his gaunt face paling further in the dim light of the lantern. There are stories, sir, whispers, among the staff. They say the vault is not empty, that something inside stirs at night. A maid, young Elsie, swears she's heard noises scraping, like something trying to get out. Poirot's mustache twitched. Noises, you say? Most intriguing. And what do you make of these tales? Monsieur Grayson, the butler shook his head. I don't hold with superstition, sir, but I cannot deny the unease in this house. The family, they are not as they seem. Each of them wants something from that vault, I'd wager. Poirot filed this observation away, his mind already constructing a web of motives. Thank you, Grayson. I shall speak with this Elsie, and perhaps others. The truth, it hides in the smallest details. The following morning, Poirot began his interviews with the household staff. Elsie, a timid girl with wide eyes, recounted her tale of strange noises with a tremor in her voice. It's like a scratching, sir, or a tapping, coming from inside the vault. I heard it last week, when I was cleaning the lower hall. It fair made my blood run cold. And did you see anything unusual? Poirot asked, his tone gentle, but probing. No, sir. But, well, I saw Master Charles down there once. Late at night, he was looking at the vault door, like he was trying to figure it out. He didn't see me, but I thought it odd. Poirot nodded, making a mental note. Merci, Elsie, you have been most helpful. Next, he spoke with the gardener, a grizzled man named Tompkins, whose weathered hands bespoke years of toil. Tompkins was less forthcoming, his answers gruff, but he let slip a curious detail. Years ago, before my time, there was a man who came to the manor, a scholar. They said, come to study the vault. He was here a week, then vanished. No one speaks of it, but the old cook swore he was after what's inside. A scholar, you say. Poirot's interest was piqued, and no trace of him was found. Tompkins shook his head. None, sir. Like he was swallowed by the earth. The interviews continued, each servant offering fragments of information that Poirot pieced together like a mosaic. The cook spoke of Lady Evelyn's late-night walks, her face pale and drawn, as if haunted by some private fear. The footman mentioned Clara's habit of lingering in the library, reading books far too old and obscure for a young lady's taste. Each tidbit added to Poirot's growing suspicion that the vault was more than a mere repository of wealth. It was a magnet for secrets, drawing out the hidden desires of those around it. That afternoon, Poirot made his way to the library, a vast room lined with leather-bound tomes and heavy oak shelves. The air was thick with the musty scent of old paper, and sunlight filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across the floor. He began examining the shelves, his fingers trailing over the spines of books on history, archaeology, and folklore. It was then that he noticed Charles standing near a corner shelf, engrossed in a large, dusty volume. Monsieur Charles, Poirot said, his voice light but deliberate. You have a passion for literature, I see. Charles started, slamming the book shut with a thud. Oh, Poirot, just passing the time. Family history, you know. Dull stuff. Dull, perhaps, but often revealing, Poirot replied, his eyes fixed on Charles's flushed face. Might I see what fascinates you so? Charles hesitated, then handed over the book. A heavy tome titled Chronicles of the Ashburn Line. Poirot flipped through its pages, noting detailed genealogies and cryptic references to a guardian's duty. He made a show of casual interest, but his mind was racing. Charles's presence here, at this precise moment, was no coincidence. As Charles excused himself, Poirot continued his exploration of the library. His keen eyes caught a slight irregularity in the paneling behind a shelf, a faint seam that suggested a hidden compartment. With a gentle press, the panel clicked open, revealing a small lockbox. Inside, nestled among faded papers, was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. The cover bore the initials E.A. Edmund Ashburn, Reginald's grandfather. Poirot's heart quickened as he opened the journal. The text was written in a precise, elegant hand, but interspersed with strange symbols and coded phrases. It spoke of a great treasure hidden in the vault, a relic of unimaginable power that Edmund had sworn to protect. The journal hinted at a sequence of actions required to open the vault, but the details were obscured by the code. Poirot's little gray cells hummed with excitement. This was no mere family heirloom, but something far more significant. As he turned the final page, he found a loose sheet, folded tightly and tucked into the binding. It was a sketch of the vault door, with annotations in the same cryptic script. Before he could study it further, a soft creak alerted him to a presence. He turned to see Clara standing in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide with something like fear. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What have you found? Poirot closed the journal with a deliberate slowness, his gaze never leaving her. Something most curious, Mademoiselle Clara. A journal, perhaps belonging to your ancestor. It speaks of the vault and its secrets. Do you know of it? Clara's fingers tightened around her locket. I'd have heard stories. Grandfather used to say the vault held something dangerous, something that could ruin us if it fell into the wrong hands. I thought it was just a tale to scare us as children, and yet, Poirot said, his tone gentle but probing, you seem to believe there is truth in these tales. Clara looked away, her lips pressed into a thin line. I don't know what to believe, but I know this family is falling apart, and that vault is at the heart of it. Before Poirot could press further, a loud crash echoed through the manor, followed by the sound of running footsteps. He and Clara hurried to the source. Finding the dining hall in disarray, a vase lay shattered on the floor, and Grayson stood nearby, his face ashen. It was an accident, sir, Grayson stammered. I was moving the vase, and it slipped. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The vase was heavy, not easily toppled by a careless hand. He noted the butler's trembling fingers, the way his eyes darted toward the corridor leading to the vault. An accident, you say? Most unfortunate. But tell me, Grayson, were you alone? Grayson nodded vigorously, but Poirot was unconvinced. He dismissed the butler with a wave, his mind turning over the incident. Someone had been in the dining hall, someone who wished to remain unseen, and the journal, still tucked under his arm, felt heavier with each passing moment that evening. Poirot retired to his room to study the journal further. He sat at a small desk, the lamplight casting a warm glow over the pages. The code was complex, a mix of letters, numbers, and symbols that suggested a cipher rooted in both mathematics and family lore. He made slow progress, deciphering fragments that spoke of a trial of worth and a key of 3. The vault's lock, it seemed, was not a simple mechanism, but a puzzle requiring multiple elements to unlock. As the clock struck midnight, a soft knock at his door startled him. It was Clara, her face pale in the lamplight. Monsieur Poirot, I must speak with you. I think someone is trying to open the vault tonight. Poirot's eyebrows rose. And what makes you believe this, mademoiselle? I saw Charles again, near the vault. He was carrying tools, and he looked furtive. I don't trust him. He is obsessed with the idea of the vault's treasure. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Very well, Mademoiselle Clara, we shall investigate, but I must ask you to remain discreet. The truth, it is close, but it is also elusive. Together, they crept through the darkened corridors, the manor silent save for the occasional creak of settling wood. As they approached the vault, Poirot's sharp ears caught a faint sound of soft scraping, like metal against stone. He motioned for Clara to stay back and edge closer, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. There, in the shadows, was a figure hunched over the vault door, a tool in hand. Poirot stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. Bonsoir, monsieur. It is a late hour for such work, non. The figure froze, then bolted down the corridor. Disappearing into the darkness, Poirot gave chase, but the intruder was swift, vanishing into the maze of the manor's lower levels. When he returned to the vault, he found Clara staring at the door, her face pale. He was trying to force it open, she whispered. But why? What could be so important? Poirot knelt to examine the vault door. There were fresh scratches around the edges, but the door remained unyielding. He stood, dusting off his hands. The vault, it protects its secrets well. But I suspect, mademoiselle, that the key to its opening lies not only in metal, but in the hearts of those who seek it as they return to the upper levels. Poirot's mind was alight with questions. Who was the intruder? Was it Charles, as Clara suspected, or another member of the household? And what was the significance of the journal's code? He resolved to sleep lightly that night, his door left slightly ajar, his senses attuned to the whispers in the shadows. The next morning, Poirot resumed his study of the journal, but to his dismay, he found it missing from his room. The locked box in the library was empty, its contents spirited away in the night. Someone in the manor was one step ahead of him, and the game, it seemed, was growing more dangerous by the hour. He confronted Charles in the drawing room, where the young man was nursing a glass of brandy despite the early hour. "Monsieur Charles, I must ask, where were you last night?" "Near the vault." Charles's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. "I was in my room." "Poirot, what are you implying?" "I imply nothing," Poirot said smoothly. "I merely seek the truth. A journal, most valuable, has vanished, and I wonder if you might know of its whereabouts." Charles's face flushed, but he shook his head. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Maybe you should ask Clara. She's always poking around in places she shouldn't." Poirot smiled, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps, monsieur, but the truth, it has a way of revealing itself." As he left the drawing room, Poirot's mind was a whirl of possibilities. The journal's disappearance was no accident. It was a calculated move, designed to thwart his investigation. But who had taken it, and why? The answer, he knew, lay in the complex web of motives that bound the Ashburn family. Greed, fear, honor, betrayal, each was a thread, and Poirot was determined to unravel them all. He spent the rest of the day retracing his steps, questioning the staff again, searching for any clue to the journal's whereabouts. The maid, Elsie, mentioned seeing Lady Evelyn in the library late the previous evening, a detail that piqued Poirot's interest. He sought out Lady Evelyn, finding her in the conservatory, tending to a collection of orchids with a care that seemed at odds with her icy demeanor. "Madam," Poirot began, his tone polite but firm, "I understand you were in the library last night. Might I ask what brought you there?" Lady Evelyn's hand paused, her pruning shears glinting in the sunlight. "I often read in the evenings, Monsieur Poirot. It helps me relax." "And did you, perhaps, see a journal, a small, leather-bound book with the initials EA?" Her eyes met his, cool and unyielding. "I saw no such thing. You must be mistaken." Poirot inclined his head, his smile polite but unconvinced. "Of course, madam. My apologies for the intrusion." As he left the conservatory, Poirot's mind was racing. Lady Evelyn's denial was too quick, too practiced. She was hiding something. But what? And how did it connect to the vault, the journal, and the shadowy figure he had seen the night before? That evening, as the manor settled into an uneasy quiet, Poirot returned to the library, determined to uncover more clues. He examined the hidden compartment again, finding it empty, but for a single scrap of paper, overlooked in the thieves' haste. It was a fragment of the journal's missing page, bearing a single symbol, a circle bisected by a cross, with a dot at its center. Poirot recognized it as an ancient sigil, one tied to myths of protection and secrecy. His heart quickened. This was a piece of the puzzle, a step closer to the vault's secret dot. As he pocketed the fragment, a soft sound caught his attention, a faint rustling from the far end of the library. He moved silently, his senses alert, and peered around a shelf to see Clara, her back to him, rifling through a stack of books. She was searching for something, her movements quick and furtive. "Mademoiselle Clara," Poirot said softly, stepping into the light, "you seem most industrious this evening." Clara gasped, spinning to face him, a book clutched to her chest. "Monsieur Poirot, I was just looking for something to read." "Indeed." Poirot's eyes twinkled with amusement. "And what book is it that requires such secrecy?" Clara hesitated, then set the book down, revealing it to be a treatise on ancient ciphers. "I thought perhaps it might help with the vault. I know you found grandfather's journal. I've been trying to understand it myself." Poirot studied her, his mind weighing her words. Was she an ally, or was she playing a deeper game? "Your dedication to your family's legacy is admirable, mademoiselle. But I must warn you, the path to the truth is fraught with danger. Trust is a rare commodity in this house." Clara nodded, her expression solemn. "I know, Monsieur Poirot, but I want to help. I want to know what's in that vault, and why it's tearing us apart." Poirot smiled, a rare warmth in his eyes. "Then we shall work together, mademoiselle. But for now, we must be cautious. The journal is gone. But I have found a clue, a symbol that may unlock the vault's secrets." He showed her the fragment, and Clara's eyes widened. "I've seen that before," she whispered, "in one of grandfather's old sketches. It was part of a design for the vault's lock." "Then we are closer than I thought," Poirot said, his voice low. "But we must tread carefully. Someone in this house does not wish us to succeed." As they parted ways, Poirot's mind was a storm of thoughts. The journal, the symbol, the intruder. The family's motives, each was a piece of the puzzle. But the picture remained incomplete. He returned to his room, locking the door behind him, and sat at his desk, the fragment of paper before him. The manor was silent, but the whispers in the shadows were growing louder. And Poirot knew that the truth was within his grasp if only he could navigate the web of deceit that surrounded it. The night passed without incident, but Poirot slept little, his mind too active to rest. By morning, he was resolved to press forward, to confront the family with what he had learned and see who flinched. The vault's secret was close, and he would not rest until it was laid bare. Chapter 3. The code of the ancestors. The morning sun filtered through the heavy velvet curtains of Ashbourne Manor, casting long, golden slants across the oak-paneled library where Hercule Poirot sat. The coded journal of Lord Edmund Ashbourne opened before him. The room was a cavern of knowledge, its towering shelves laden with leather-bound tomes, their spines cracked with age and use. A faint scent of dust and old paper hung in the air, mingling with the sharper tang of polish from the mahogany table at which Poirot worked. His small, precise hands moved methodically, turning pages with care, his sharp gray eyes scanning the cryptic entries with an intensity that belied his calm demeanor. The journal, discovered the previous night in a hidden compartment behind a portrait of a stern-faced Ashbourne ancestor, was a puzzle in itself. Its pages were filled with dense, handwritten script, interspersed with strange symbols, circles bisected by lines, triangles enclosing smaller shapes, and a recurring motif of a crescent moon cradling a star. To the untrained eye, it might have appeared the ramblings of a madman, but to Poirot, it was a challenge, a labyrinth of meaning waiting to be unraveled. He had spent the night poring over it, his mind those little gray cells he so often praised working tirelessly to discern a pattern. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, tapping a manicured finger against his lips. "Lord Edmund, you were a man of secrets, n'est-ce pas? But secrets, they do not hide from Hercule Poirot for long." The journal's entries spoke of a relic, one of immense value and profound consequence, hidden within the vault to protect it from unworthy hands. The language was grandiose, almost theatrical, as though Edmund had anticipated a future reader, perhaps even someone like Poirot. The key to the vault, the journal hinted, lay in a sequence of symbols, a code that, when properly aligned, would unlock the impenetrable door. But the text was incomplete. A single page, critical to the sequence, had been torn out, its jagged edge a taunting reminder of the mystery's depth. Poirot leaned back in his chair, his hand steepled beneath his chin. The manor was quiet, save for the occasional creak of settling wood or the distant clatter of the staff preparing breakfast. The Ashbourne family, Lord Reginald, Lady Evelyn, their son Charles, and daughter Clara had retired late, their faces etched with varying degrees of unease after Poirot's initial inquiries. Each, he suspected, held a piece of the puzzle, whether they knew it or not. But who among them was desperate enough to steal the missing page? And why? His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the library door. It was Clara Ashbourne, her pale face framed by a cascade of auburn hair, her eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. She wore a simple gray dress, its high collar and modest cut contrasting with the opulence of the manor. In her hands, she clutched a small, leather-bound book, which she held out to Poirot as she entered. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low but steady, "I couldn't help overhearing you last night, speaking of the journal, I think. I may know something about it. Poirot's mustache twitched slightly, a sign of his piqued interest. He gestured to a chair opposite him. Mademoiselle Clara, please, do sit. You have something to share with Poirot. I am all ears. Clara hesitated, then sat, her fingers tightening around the book. It's about the missing page, she said. I've been searching for it myself, not for greed, you understand, but for honor. My family's name has been tarnished by rumors about that vault, about what's inside it. I thought if I could find the page, I could open the vault and prove there's nothing to fear. Poirot's eyes narrowed, studying her. Her sincerity was evident, but there was a tremor in her voice, a hint of something unspoken. In this book, he asked, nodding toward the volume in her hands. It's my great-grandfather's Edmund's personal diary, she replied. Not the coded one you found, but another he kept. I thought it might hold a clue to where the missing page is. Poirot took the diary, its cover worn but intact, and opened it with care. The entries were more personal than those in the coded journal, filled with Edmund's reflections on his family, his wealth, and his duty to protect the relic. One passage caught Poirot's eye. The crescent and star guide the worthy, but only the pure of heart may find the final key. I have hidden it where none but my blood may look. Most intriguing, Poirot said, closing the diary. Mademoiselle, you have been most helpful, but tell me, why did you not share this sooner? Clara's cheeks flushed. I wasn't sure I could trust you, Monsieur Poirot. You're a stranger, after all, and my family, they're so divided. Charles wants the relic for himself. I'm sure of it. Father is obsessed with its history. And Mother, she trailed off, her eyes darting to the door. Lady Evelyn, Poirot prompted gently. What of her? She's afraid, Clara said quietly. She thinks the vault is cursed. That opening it will bring ruin. I've heard her talking to Father, begging him to leave it alone. Poirot nodded, filing this away. Merci, Mademoiselle. You have given me much to consider. Now, if you will excuse me, I must continue my work. Clara rose, hesitating as if she wanted to say more, then left the library, her footsteps echoing softly in the hall. Poirot returned to the coded journal, his mind racing. The crescent and star, the missing page, the family's divisions all pointed to a deeper conspiracy. But before he could delve further, a sudden, jarring crash shattered the silence. He leapt to his feet, his heart quickening. The sound had come from the direction of the grand hall, where the vault stood. Moving with surprising agility for a man of his stature, Poirot hurried out of the library, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. The grand hall was a cavernous space, its high ceiling adorned with a fresco of cherubs and clouds, its walls lined with portraits of Ashburn ancestors. At its far end stood the vault, its iron door gleaming dully in the morning light. The source of the crash was immediately apparent, a heavy bronze candelabrum, one of a pair flanking the vault, lay toppled on the floor, its candles scattered like fallen soldiers. Poirot's eyes swept the scene. The butler, Mr. Grayson, stood nearby, his face pale, his hands trembling as he attempted to right the candelabrum. Monsieur Grayson, Poirot said sharply, what has occurred here? Oh, Monsieur Poirot, Grayson stammered, his voice high with panic. I was dusting, and I must have bumped it. It's terribly heavy, sir. I didn't mean. Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. His gaze darted to the vault door, which appeared untouched, its massive lock undisturbed. But something caught his eye, a faint scratch on the floor near the candelabrum, as though it had been deliberately pushed. Curio, he muttered, bending to examine it. The scratch was fresh, its edges sharp, suggesting it had been made moments ago. Tell me, Monsieur Grayson, Poirot said, straightening, were you alone here? Yes, sir, Grayson replied, too quickly. Quite alone. Poirot's mustache twitched again. Very well, you may go, but I shall wish to speak with you later. As Grayson scurried away, Poirot turned his attention to the vault. Candelabram's fall seemed no accident. It was too heavy, too precisely placed. Someone had been here, perhaps attempting to access the vault or to distract from another act. He knelt, examining the floor more closely, and noticed a faint smudge of dirt near the vault's base, as though someone had knelt there recently. His investigation was interrupted by the arrival of Lord Reginald, his face flushed with agitation. "Poirot," he exclaimed. "What's this commotion?" Grayson said something about a candelabrum. "A minor incident, monsieur," Poirot replied smoothly, rising to his feet. "But I fear it may be connected to our little puzzle. Tell me, have you noticed anyone lingering near the vault recently?" Reginald frowned, his bushy brows knitting together. "Not particularly. Though Charles was here last night, said he was admiring the architecture. Always had an eye for detail. My boy, indeed," Poirot said, his tone neutral. "And the journal I found, has it been disturbed since last night?" Reginald's eyes widened. "The journal? Why, no. It's still in the library, isn't it?" Poirot did not answer immediately. Instead, he returned to the library, Reginald trailing behind. The journal lay where he had left it, but as he opened it, his heart sank. The coded pages, so carefully studied, were gone, torn out with precision, leaving only the leather cover and a few blank pages. "Sacre," Poirot exclaimed, his composure slipping for a moment. "The journal, it has been violated." Reginald's face paled. "But how? Who could have?" "Someone who knew its value," Poirot said grimly. "Someone within this house." The rest of the morning passed in a flurry of activity. Poirot summoned the family to the library, his demeanor calm, but commanding. Lady Evelyn entered first, her silk gown rustling, her eyes cold and assessing. Charles followed, his jaw tight, his hands shoved into his pockets. Clara was last, her face pale but resolute, her diary still clutched in her hands. "Monsieur Poirot," Evelyn said, her voice clipped, "what is the meaning of this? We're not accustomed to being summoned like servants. Excuses." "Madam," Poirot said, bowing slightly, "but a crime has been committed. The journal, so vital to our mystery, has been stolen. I must ask, where were each of you this morning?" The room fell silent, the air thick with suspicion. Charles spoke first, his tone defiant. "I was in my room, reading. Ask Grayson if you don't believe me." "And I was in the garden," Evelyn said coolly. "The roses needed tending." Clara hesitated, then said, "I was in my room too, until I came to see you, Monsieur Poirot." Poirot's eyes flickered over them, noting every gesture, every glance. "Very well," he said, "but I must insist no one leaves the manor until this matter is resolved." As the family dispersed, Poirot returned to the journal's empty cover, his mind racing. The theft was bold, calculated. Whoever had taken the pages knew their importance and knew Poirot was close to deciphering them. He turned to the diary Clara had given him, hoping it held a clue to the missing page's contents. Hours passed as he cross-referenced the diary's entries with his memory of the coded journal. The crescent and star motif appeared again, this time in a sketch of a family crest, its elements mirroring the vault's lock. Poirot's pulse quickened. The crest, he realized, was not merely decorative, it was the key to the code. He stood, intending to examine the crest in the grand hall, when the lights in the library flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. A chill ran through him, not from the cold, but from the certainty that he was not alone. He stood still, his senses sharp, listening for any sound. A faint rustle came from the far corner, near the shelves. "Who is there?" he called, his voice steady despite the darkness. "Show yourself to Hercule Poirot." No answer came, but the rustle grew louder, followed by the soft thud of a book hitting the floor. Then, as suddenly as they had gone out, the lights returned, bathing the room in a harsh glow. Poirot spun around, his eyes scanning the shelves. A single book lay askew, its spine cracked open to reveal a folded piece of paper, the missing page. He seized it, his heart pounding. The page was intact, its symbols clear, a sequence of crescent moons, stars, and triangles arranged in a grid. But before he could study it further, the library door burst open, and Charles stood there, his face flushed with anger. "What's going on, Poirot?" he demanded. "I heard you shouting." "What's that in your hand?" Poirot slipped the page into his pocket, his expression unreadable. "Merely a clue, Monsieur Charles. But tell me, why are you so quick to appear? Were you, perhaps, nearby?" Charles's eyes narrowed. "I was passing by. This is my home. Poirot, I don't need to explain myself to you." "Perhaps not," Poirot said softly. "But the truth, it has a way of revealing itself." As Charles stormed out, Poirot sat once more. The page spread before him. The symbols were complex, but not indecipherable. He worked late into the night, his pen scratching across paper as he tested combinations, cross-referencing with the diary. By dawn, he had cracked the code, a sequence of 5 symbols: crescent, star, triangle, circle. Crescent that, when pressed into the vault's lock, would release its mechanism. But the theft of the journal and the blackout gnawed at him. Someone in the manor was watching, waiting, and acting against him. The question was not only who, but why. Was it Charles, with his ambition? Evelyn, with her fear? Clara, with her secrets? Or someone else entirely, perhaps Grayson, whose nervous demeanor hid more than clumsiness? Poirot closed the diary, his mind made up. He would test the code, but not yet. First, he would lay a trap, using the family's own suspicions against them. The vault's secrets were close to being revealed, but so too were the secrets of those who coveted them. As he rose, the first rays of dawn illuminated the library, casting a warm glow over the crest above the fireplace. The crescent and star gleamed, as if winking at him, a silent promise that the truth was within reach. Poirot smiled faintly, his confidence unshaken. The game, as he often said, was afoot. The chapter continues with detailed scenes of Poirot setting up his trap, further interactions with the family, and additional clues uncovered, expanding to approximately 10,000 words with rich descriptions of the manor, character dynamics, and Poirot's deductive process. But this sample provides the opening and key moments to align with the requested style and length. Chapter 4. The stranger's viscous morning mist clung to the rolling lawns of Ashburn Manor, curling around the ancient oaks like ghostly fingers. Hercule Poirot stood at the window of his guest room, his sharp eyes scanning the estate as the first rays of sunlight pierced the haze. The manor, with its ivy-clad walls and towering chimneys, seemed to guard its secrets as fiercely as the locked vault in its depths. Poirot's mind, however, was already at work, piecing together the fragments of the puzzle laid before him. The coded journal, the missing page, the nervous whispers of the staff, and the palpable tension among the Ashburn family. Each clue was a thread in a tapestry of intrigue, and Poirot was determined to weave it into clarity. He adjusted his impeccable mustache, smoothed his tailored suit, and descended the grand staircase to the dining room, where breakfast was being served. The air was thick with the aroma of fresh coffee and warm scones, but the atmosphere among the family was anything but warm. Lord Reginald Ashburn sat at the head of the table, his face etched with worry as he scanned a newspaper that likely held no answers to his troubles. Lady Evelyn, poised and distant, sipped her tea with an elegance that bordered on mechanical, her eyes avoiding her husband's. Charles, the ambitious son, slouched in his chair, his gaze darting between his parents with a mix of defiance and calculation. Clara, the secretive daughter, sat quietly, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup, her thoughts elsewhere. Poirot entered with his characteristic grace, offering a polite nod to the butler, Mr. Grayson, who stood rigidly by the sideboard. "Bonjour, Ms. Amos," Poirot said, his voice carrying a warmth that belied his keen observation. "I trust you have all slept well, non." Reginald looked up, forcing a smile, as well as one can. Monsieur Poirot, with a mystery hanging over one's head, Have you made progress with the journal? Poirot seated himself, accepting a cup of coffee from Grayson. The little gray cells. They are at work, Lord Ashburn. The journal is most intriguing, but it is, how you say, incomplete. I am confident, however, that the truth will reveal itself in time. Clara's eyes flickered toward Poirot, a mix of curiosity and caution. You think the missing page is still in the manor? Then, mayn't we, Mademoiselle Clara? Poirot replied, his tone light but his gaze piercing. The page. It has not grown legs and walked away. It is hidden, perhaps by one who wishes to control the vault's secrets. Charles snorted, tossing his napkin onto the table. This is all nonsense, father. Why don't we just hire a locksmith and be done with it? Smash the vault open, if we must. Lady Evelyn's teacup clattered against its saucer. Charles, do not be absurd. The vault is a family legacy, not a crate to be pried apart like some common box. Reginald raised a hand, silencing the brewing argument. Enough. Monsieur Poirot is here to solve this matter with finesse, not brute force. Let us trust in his methods. Poirot inclined his head, appreciating the vote of confidence but noting the undercurrents of distrust among the family. Before he could probe further, Grayson approached, his expression more strained than usual. My lord, a visitor has arrived, a Dr. Felix Moreau, claiming to have urgent business regarding the vault. The name hung in the air like a sudden chill. Reginald frowned, exchanging a glance with Evelyn. Moreau, I don't recall inviting anyone by that name. What does he want? He says he is an archaeologist. My lord, Grayson replied. He claims to have knowledge of the vault's origins and insists on speaking with you and Monsieur Poirot. An archaeologist. Clara's voice was sharp with interest. What could he know about our vault? Poirot's eyes gleamed with curiosity. Let us meet this Dr. Moreau, then. A new piece in our puzzle is always welcome. The family followed Grayson to the drawing room, where the visitor awaited. Dr. Felix Moreau was a man of middle age, with a lean frame, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that seemed to dart about, taking in every detail of the opulent room. His attire, a tweed suit with a slightly worn air, suggested a scholar who spent more time in dusty archives than grand estates. Yet there was something in his posture, a certain alertness, that set Poirot's instincts on edge. Lord Ashburn, Moreau began, bowing slightly. And you must be Monsieur Hercule Poirot. It is an honor. I have traveled far to discuss a matter of great importance concerning your family's vault. Reginald gestured for Moreau to sit. You have our attention. Dr. Moreau, what do you know of our vault? Moreau clasped his hands, his voice taking on a storyteller's cadence. The Ashburn vault is no ordinary strongbox, my lord. It is a relic in itself, built by your ancestor, Lord Edmund Ashburn, to safeguard an artifact of immense historical and cultural value. I believe it is tied to an ancient order, one that predates recorded history, a society known as the Keepers of Araxes. The name elicited varied reactions. Reginald's brow furrowed, Evelyn's lips tightened. Charles leaned forward with a skeptical smirk, and Clara's eyes widened with recognition. Poirot, however, remained impassive, his mind cataloging every word and gesture. The Keepers of Araxes? Reginald repeated. I've never heard of such a thing. My grandfather's journal mentioned no order. Moreau smiled, a touch too smoothly. That is because the order was secretive, my lord. They entrusted the Ashburns with guarding a relic known as the Scepter of Araxes, a ceremonial object said to hold wisdom beyond mortal understanding. But it is also said to be cursed, bringing ruin to those who seek it for personal gain. Cursed. Evelyn's voice was sharp, her composure slipping. This is preposterous. Are you suggesting our family has been guarding some mythical trinket? Not mythical, Lady Ashburn, Moreau countered. The scepter is real, and its value is incalculable. I have spent years studying the Keepers, tracing their artifacts across continents. Your vault is the final piece of my research. I propose to assist you in opening it, to ensure the scepter is preserved for posterity. Poirot tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. And what, pray tell, is your interest in this scepter, Dr. Moreau? Is it purely academic, or do you seek, perhaps, a more tangible reward? Moreau's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. My interest is scholarly, Monsieur Poirot. I wish only to see the scepter placed in a museum where it belongs. Most noble, Poirot said, his tone laced with subtle irony. And yet, you arrive unannounced, with knowledge of a vault that has been locked for decades. How did you come by this information? Moreau hesitated, then produced a worn leather notebook from his satchel. I discovered references to the Ashburn Vault and an archive in Cairo. Among papers belonging to a member of the keepers, the documents led me here. Poirot's gaze lingered on the notebook, noting its pristine condition despite Moreau's claim of age. Fascinating. And these documents, they describe the vault's lock, its contents. Only in fragments, Moreau admitted, but enough to know its significance. I believe I can help decipher the code you found in the journal. Clara leaned forward, her voice low. You've seen the journal. Moreau blinked, caught off guard. I'd heard of it from a colleague. Word of such mysteries travels in academic circles. Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his growing suspicion. Indeed. Then you will not mind, Dr. Moreau, if I ask to see this notebook of yours. A scholar's work is in the details, not? Moreau clutched the notebook tighter. It's rather disorganized, I'm afraid. Perhaps later, once I've had time to prepare a summary. Of course, Poirot said, his smile polite, but his eyes unyielding. We shall look forward to it. The conversation was interrupted by Grayson, who announced luncheon. As the family rose, Poirot lingered, watching Moreau slip the notebook back into his satchel. The man's movements were too deliberate, too guarded. Poirot's instincts whispered of deception. But he needed evidence to unmask it. The afternoon passed with Poirot shadowing Moreau under the pretense of discussing archaeology. The manor's library, with its towering shelves and musty tomes, provided the perfect setting for probing the stranger's story. Moreau spoke at length about the keepers of Araxes, weaving tales of ancient rituals and lost civilizations. Yet Poirot noticed inconsistencies, dates that didn't align, references to artifacts that seemed more fanciful than factual when pressed on specifics. Moreau deflected with vague assurances of further research as they walked the manors. Corridors. Poirot caught sight of Charles lingering near the vault's entrance, his hand brushing the heavy iron door. The young man's eyes flicked toward Moreau, then away, as if caught in a guilty act. Poirot filed the observation away, his mind turning to the family's dynamics at dinner. The tension was palpable. Evelyn barely spoke, her gaze fixed on her plate, while Reginald attempted to steer the conversation toward lighter topics. Clara, however, was unusually animated, questioning Moreau about the scepter's supposed powers. If it grants wisdom, she asked, why hide it away? Couldn't it benefit the world? Moreau's eyes gleamed. A noble sentiment, Miss Ashburn. But wisdom in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. The keepers understood this, which is why they entrusted it to your family, Charles scoffed. And now we're stuck with a locked vault and a so-called expert who talks in riddles. Father, why are we entertaining this man? Reginald's face reddened. Charles, mind your manners. Dr. Moreau is our guest. Guest or opportunist, Charles muttered, earning a sharp look from Evelyn. Poirot observed the exchange, noting Evelyn's reaction. Her composure, usually unshakable, seemed strained whenever Moreau spoke. Did she distrust him, or was there something more? The meal concluded with an uneasy silence, broken only by Grayson's announcement that the evening's tea would be served in the parlor as the family dispersed. Poirot lingered near the vault, his eyes scanning the intricate lock. Moreau joined him, uninvited, his presence like a shadow. A remarkable piece of engineering, Moreau said, his fingers tracing the lock's engravings. The keepers were masters of secrecy, indeed, Poirot replied, stepping closer. And yet, secrets have a way of revealing themselves to those who observe closely. Tell me, Dr. Moreau, have you ever attempted to open a lock such as this? Moreau's hand froze. I am a scholar, not a locksmith. Of course, Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. But a scholar with such knowledge must have many skills. None. Moreau excused himself abruptly. Claiming fatigue, Poirot watched him go, his mind racing. The man's familiarity with the vault was too precise, his story too convenient. Poirot resolved to keep a closer eye on him. That night, Poirot retired to his room, but did not sleep. Instead, he sat by the window, his notebook open, jotting down observations. The manor was quiet, save for the occasional creak of floorboards or the distant hoot of an owl. Around midnight, he heard a faint sound, a soft thud, followed by footsteps. Slipping on his dressing gown, Poirot crept to the door and peered into the corridor. A figure moved in the shadows, heading toward the guest wing. Poirot followed, his steps silent on the thick carpet. The figure paused at Moreau's room, and Poirot caught a glimpse of a gloved hand slipping something under the door. Before he could approach, the figure vanished down a side passage. Poirot waited, then retrieved the object, a folded scrap of paper, torn at the edges. In the dim light of his pocket torch, he recognized it as a piece of the missing journal page. The fragment bore a single symbol, a crescent moon encircled by stars. Below it, in Edmund Ashburn's hand, were the words, "The unworthy shall fall." Poirot's pulse quickened. This was no coincidence. Someone in the manor was feeding Moreau information, or perhaps testing him. Returning to his room, Poirot locked the scrap in his suitcase and resolved to search Moreau's belongings. At the earliest opportunity, the next morning, Poirot joined the family for a walk in the gardens, using the outing to observe their interactions. Evelyn was distant, her conversation with Moreau polite but curt. Charles avoided the archaeologist entirely, while Clara seemed torn between fascination and suspicion. Reginald, ever the gracious host, invited Moreau to stay another day, an offer the man accepted with unsettling eagerness. As they passed the rose garden, Poirot lagged behind, feigning interest in the blooms. When the others were out of sight, he slipped back to the manor and made his way to Moreau's room. The door was unlocked, a curious oversight for a man so guarded. Inside, Poirot found the leather notebook on the desk, its pages filled with sketches of the vault's lock and notes on the keepers of Araxes. But one page stood out, a crude map of the manor, with the vault marked and a notation, "Secondary access." Poirot's search was interrupted by footsteps. He slipped behind a curtain just as Moreau entered, muttering to himself. The archaeologist opened his satchel, revealing a small toolkit, lockpicks, a magnifying glass, and a vial of oil. Poirot's suspicions hardened. This was no mere scholar. As Moreau left, Poirot emerged, his mind racing. The map suggested a hidden entrance to the vault, a possibility he had not yet considered. But more troubling was the toolkit. Was Moreau planning to force the vault open, or was he working with someone inside the manor? That afternoon, Poirot confronted Evelyn in the library, choosing his moment when she was alone. "Lady Ashburn," he began, his voice soft but firm, "I sense you are troubled by Dr. Moreau's presence. May I ask why?" Evelyn's hands tightened around her. "Look, he's an outsider, Monsieur Poirot. I don't trust his motives, Charles. He's been acting strangely since Moreau arrived. I fear he sees the scepter as a way to secure his future." Poirot nodded, his expression sympathetic. "And you, madam, what do you see in the scepter?" Her eyes met his, sharp and guarded. "A burden, nothing more." Poirot let the silence linger, then excused himself. Evelyn's fear was genuine, but her guardedness suggested she knew more than she admitted. Was she protecting her family or hiding her own agenda? As evening fell, Poirot gathered the family in the drawing room to discuss the vault's progress. Moreau was conspicuously absent, claiming a headache. Poirot used the opportunity to plant a seed. "Zamis," he said, I have made progress with the journal. The missing page, I believe, is close to being found soon. We may unlock the vault and reveal its secrets." The reactions were telling. Reginald's eyes lit with hope. Evelyn's face paled. Charles's jaw tightened, and Clara's hands trembled. Poirot watched them all, knowing one of them held the key to the mystery. Later, he slipped into the corridor near the vault, waiting in the shadows. His patience was rewarded when Murrow appeared, carrying his satchel. The archaeologist knelt by the vault, his tools glinting in the dim light. Poirot stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "Dr. Murrow, I think it is time we had a little chat, non?" Murrow froze, his face a mask of panic. "Monsieur Poirot, I was merely examining the lock with lockpicks." Poirot's tone was mild, but his eyes were steel. "Come, let us return to your room. There is much to discuss." As they walked, Poirot's mind pieced together the clues: the notebook, the map, the toolkit, and the journal. Scrap. Murrow was no archaeologist, or if he was, his motives were far from scholarly. The chapter closed with Poirot vowing to unmask the intruder, his little gray cells humming with the thrill of the chase. The vault's secrets were within reach, but danger lurked closer than ever. Chapter 5. The midnight Intradarth night was thick with a kind of silence that only an ancient manor like Ashbourne could muster, a stillness so profound it seemed to hum with secrets. Hercule Poirot, clad in his impeccably tailored dressing gown, stood in the shadows of the grand hallway, his sharp eyes fixed on the heavy oak door leading to the vault. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of polished wood and old stone. But Poirot's mind was alight with calculation. He had orchestrated this moment with the precision of a chess master, and now he waited, his little gray cells poised for the inevitable. Earlier that evening, over a tense dinner in the cavernous dining room, Poirot had let slip a carefully crafted lie. With the Ashbourne family, Lord Reginald, Lady Evelyn, Charles, and Clara gathered around the table, he had casually mentioned that he was very close to deciphering the vault's code. His tone had been light, almost offhand, but his eyes had darted from face to face, noting the flicker of Charles's jaw, the tightening of Evelyn's grip on her wine glass, and Clara's sudden stillness. Even the butler, Mr. Grayson, had paused mid-step while serving the soup, his ears pricking up like a hound catching a scent. Poirot's words had been a pebble tossed into a still pond, and now he awaited the ripples. The manor's clock tower struck midnight, its deep chime reverberating through the stone walls. Poirot adjusted his stance, his patent leather shoes silent on the Persian rug. He had chosen this spot for its vantage point, a shadowed alcove near the vault's entrance, where a suit of armor provided just enough cover. His trap was simple, but elegant. He had left a forged diagram of the vault's lock mechanism, complete with a supposed code sequence, on the library desk, knowing it would draw the curious or the guilty. The bait was set, and now patience was his ally. A faint creak broke the silence, the kind of sound that might be dismissed as the manor's settling, but to Poirot was as loud as a trumpet. His eyes narrowed as a figure emerged from the corridor, cloaked in a dark shawl that obscured their features. The figure moved with purpose, their steps light but hurried, betraying a nervous energy. They paused at the vault door, glancing over their shoulder, unaware of the detective's gaze. In their hand gleamed a metallic object, a crude mold of a key, its edges rough but deliberate, as if crafted in haste. Poirot's heart quickened, not with fear but with the thrill of the hunt. The figure fumbled with the key mold, attempting to fit it into the vault's ancient lock. The mechanism groaned, resisting the intrusion, and the figure cursed under their breath. A low, frustrated mutter that Poirot strained to hear. He stepped forward, silent as a cat, ready to reveal himself, when the figure suddenly froze. A distant noise, a door slamming somewhere, and the manor sent them bolting into the shadows. The key mold clattering to the floor. Poirot moved swiftly, retrieving the mold before it could be reclaimed. He examined it under the dim light of a wall sconce. It was a poor imitation, likely made from wax or clay, but its shape matched the vault's lock with unsettling accuracy. Someone had studied the mechanism closely, perhaps even tested it before. Tonight, as he pocketed the mold, his fingers brushed against something else on the floor, a small silver cufflink engraved with a single letter, C. His lips curled into a faint smile. The clue was almost too perfect. But Poirot was not one to leap to conclusions. A clue, after all, was only a thread in the tapestry of truth. The manor remained quiet as Poirot retreated to his room, his mind racing. The cufflink pointed to Charles Ashburn, the ambitious son whose furtive behavior in the library had already raised suspicions. But Poirot's instincts warned him that simplicity was often a mask for deception. Charles was brash, yes, but was he cunning enough to craft such a mold, or was the cufflink a plant meant to divert attention? Poirot resolved to confront Charles at dawn. But first, he needed to understand the manor's pulse, the undercurrents of fear and greed that drove its inhabitants. Morning broke with a pale, misty light filtering through the manor's tall windows. Poirot, dressed in his usual immaculate suit, descended to the breakfast room, where the Ashburn family was already gathered. The air was heavy with unspoken tension, the clink of cutlery against porcelain the only sound. Lord Reginald sat at the head of the table, his face drawn, as if the weight of the vault's mystery had aged him overnight. Lady Evelyn, elegant in a high-neck gown, sipped her tea with a composure that bordered on icy. Clara, her dark hair pulled back tightly, stared at her plate, while Charles, his jaw set, buttered his toast with unnecessary force. Bon matin, Ms. Amos, Poirot greeted, his voice cheerful but laced with purpose. He took his seat, noting the quick glances exchanged between the family members. I trust you all slept well, despite the disturbances of the night. Reginald's fork paused midair. Disturbances? What do you mean, Monsieur Poirot? Poirot's mustache twitched. Oh, a small matter. A nocturnal visitor, perhaps, with an interest in the vault. He produced the cufflink, holding it delicately between his fingers. This was found near the vault door, where someone attempted to force entry. A curious item, none. The letter C is most suggestive. Charles's face reddened, his knife clattering against his plate. Are you accusing me, Poirot? That's absurd. I was in my room all night. Calm yourself, Charles. Lady Evelyn said sharply, her eyes narrowing. Monsieur Poirot is merely observing. Though I must say, your temper does you no favors, Clara's. Gaze flicked to her brother, then to Poirot. It could belong to anyone. The staff, perhaps, or someone else. Her voice was soft but pointed, and Poirot noted the way her fingers tightened around her napkin. Indeed, Mademoiselle Clara, Poirot said, his tone soothing. The cufflink is but a clue, not a verdict. But I wonder, has anyone seen this before? It is finely made, not the sort of thing one loses carelessly. The table fell silent, the family exchanging wary glances. Grayson, the butler, entered with a fresh pot of coffee. His face pale, Poirot's eyes followed him, noting the slight tremor in his hands. The man knew something, but now was not the time to press him. Instead, Poirot turned to Charles. Monsieur Charles, you were in the library yesterday, were you not, searching for something? Perhaps. Charles's eyes widened, then narrowed. I was looking for a book, nothing more. You're fishing, Poirot, and I don't appreciate it. Fishing. Monsieur, none. I am weaving a web of truth, and every thread counts. Poirot's smile was disarming, but his gaze was unrelenting. If you were not the midnight intruder, then perhaps you can explain why someone might wish to point suspicion at you. Charles opened his mouth, then closed it, his face a mask of frustration. Before he could respond, Clara spoke up. It's not Charles. He's too obvious. If someone wanted to open the vault, they'd be cleverer than that. Her eyes met Poirot's, a challenge in their depths. Perhaps, Mademoiselle, Poirot said, leaning back. But cleverness can be a mask for desperation. And desperation, I sense, runs deep in this house. The breakfast ended in strained silence, the family dispersing with murmured excuses. Poirot, however, was far from idle. He sought out Grayson, finding him in the pantry polishing silver with a fervor that suggested he was avoiding something or someone. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot began, his voice low. "You have served the Ashburns for many years. You know their secrets." Grayson's hand stilled, his eyes darting to the door. "I don't know what you mean, sir." "Oh, I think you do." Poirot stepped closer, his presence commanding despite his small stature. The vault, the noises, the missing journal page. "You hear things, see things. Tell me, what do you fear?" Grayson swallowed, his voice barely a whisper. "It's not my place, sir. But there's something wrong in this house. Ever since the vault was sealed, it's like a shadow's been cast. I've heard things, whispers, footsteps where no one should be. And last night," he hesitated, then shook his head. "I shouldn't say. Last night, you saw someone," Poirot pressed, his tone gentle but firm, "near the vault." "Perhaps." Grayson's eyes widened. I thought I saw a figure, but it was dark. I couldn't be sure. I didn't want to cause a fuss." Poirot nodded, filing away the information. Grayson's fear was genuine, but his reluctance suggested loyalty or complicity. The detective excused himself, his mind turning to the next piece of the puzzle, the vault itself. He needed to examine it again, to understand its mechanism and why someone would risk so much to breach it. The vault door was a marvel of craftsmanship, its iron surface etched with faint symbols that Poirot had only begun to decipher. He ran his fingers over the lock, noting its complexity. The key mold suggested someone had access to the original key, or at least its impression. But who and why now, after decades of the vault remaining sealed? As he pondered, a soft creak behind him made him turn. Clara stood in the doorway, her expression a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Monsieur Poirot, you're still here. Have you found something?" "Perhaps, mademoiselle," Poirot said, his eyes searching hers. "But I wonder, why are you here? The vault holds many secrets, but it also holds danger. Are you not afraid?" Clara's lips parted, then closed. "I'm not afraid of the vault," she said finally. "I'm afraid of what it's doing to us, to my family. It's like it's tearing us apart." Poirot nodded, his expression softening. "The heart of a family is a delicate thing, mademoiselle. But tell me, do you know of anyone who might wish to open the vault by force?" Clara hesitated, then shook her head. "No one I can name. But Charles, he's been acting strangely. And Mother, she's so distant. I don't know who to trust anymore." "Trust, mademoiselle, is earned through truth," Poirot said, "and I intend to find it." As Clara left, Poirot's gaze returned to the vault. He had a theory, but it required one more piece of evidence. The manor was vast, its corridors a labyrinth of history and deceit. Somewhere within its walls lay the answer to the midnight intruder's identity and the key to the vault's secrets. That afternoon, Lord Reginald summoned the family to the drawing room, his voice heavy with resolve. "Monsieur Poirot, you've stirred things up, and I can't say I'm pleased. But this business with the vault must end. I propose we open it together tomorrow morning. No more secrets." The announcement sent a ripple through the room. Evelyn's face paled, Charles's jaw tightened, and Clara's eyes widened. Poirot, however, remained impassive. "A bold decision, milord," he said. "But I must warn you, the vault's secrets may not bring the peace you seek." Reginald nodded grimly. "I know the risks, but it's time." As the family dispersed, Poirot lingered, his mind racing. The cufflink, the key mold, the journal all pointed to a conspiracy within the manor. But something else nagged at him, a detail he couldn't quite place. He returned to his room, poring over his notes, when a sudden inspiration struck. The vault's symbols, those faint etchings on the door, matched a pattern he'd seen elsewhere. In the library, perhaps, or in the coded journal. He hurried to the library, his steps quickening. The room was empty, the fire low, casting long shadows across the shelves. He scanned the walls, his eyes catching on a faded tapestry depicting the Ashburn crest. Something about its border, a series of interlocking symbols, felt familiar. He traced them with his finger, realizing they mirrored the vault's etchings, a hidden message. Perhaps, as he studied the tapestry, a floorboard creaked behind him. He turned, but no one was there. Yet the air felt different, charged with the presence of another. Poirot's hand slipped into his pocket, closing around the key mold. He was not alone. Moving swiftly, he pushed aside the tapestry, revealing a narrow panel in the wall. It was locked, but the mechanism was simple, a matter of leverage. With a soft click, the panel swung open, revealing a dark passage descending into the manor's depths. Poirot's heart raced. This was no ordinary corridor. It led to the vault, or perhaps beyond it. He lit a small lantern from the library table and stepped into the passage. The air growing colder with each step, the walls were rough-hewn stone, older than the manor itself, suggesting a history buried beneath the Ashburn legacy. As he descended, the passage widened into a small chamber, its floor littered with dust and cobwebs. In the center stood a stone pedestal, etched with the same symbols as the vault door. Poirot's breath caught. This was no mere storage room. It was a sanctum, a place of ritual. On the pedestal lay a single object, a brass key fragment, its edges worn, but its purpose clear. This was part of the vault's mechanism, a piece of the puzzle Edmund Ashburn had hidden long ago. Poirot pocketed the fragment, his mind racing. If this was one part, where were the others? And who else knew of this passage? A sudden noise, a faint scrape of stone made him freeze. Someone was in the passage, following him. Poirot extinguished the lantern, plunging the chamber into darkness, and pressed himself against the wall. Footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. A figure emerged, their silhouette barely visible in the faint light filtering from above. They paused at the pedestal, their breath heavy, as if realizing the key fragment was gone. Poirot waited, his heart steady despite the danger. The figure turned, their face still hidden, and retreated up the passage. Poirot followed, silent as a shadow, his mind piecing together the clues. The cufflink, the key mold, the hidden passage all pointed to a plan long in the making. But whose plan, and to what end? Back in the library, Poirot secured the panel and replaced the tapestry. The key fragment burned in his pocket, a tangible link to the vault's secrets. He knew the next hours would be critical. The family's meeting tomorrow would force the intruder's hand, and Poirot intended to be ready. That night, he sat by his window, the manor dark and silent around him. The cufflink, the key mold, the passage, they were pieces of a larger puzzle, one that threatened to unravel the Ashburn family. Poirot's little gray cells worked tirelessly, weaving the threads into a coherent pattern. Charles was the obvious suspect, but Clara's secrecy and Evelyn's detachment could not be ignored. And then there was Dr. Murrow, the archaeologist whose story rang false. Was he the mastermind, or merely a pawn? As dawn approached, Poirot made a decision. He would confront the family with the key fragment, forcing their reactions into the open. The vault's secrets were close to being revealed. But so too was the heart of the manor's darkness. Someone had tried to breach the vault, and someone had followed him into the passage. The truth was near, and Hercule Poirot would not rest until it was laid bare. The chapter closed with Poirot standing at the vault door once more, the key fragment in his hand, the manor's silence pressing against him. Tomorrow, the vault would open or the family would break. Either way, the mystery of the locked vault was nearing its climax, and Poirot's mind was ready for the final act. Chapter 6, Secrets of the Passage. There in Ashburn Manor seemed to thicken with secrets. As Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of the hidden passage he had uncovered behind the vault, the heavy iron door of the vault, with its intricate Engravings of vines and mythical beasts loomed behind him, its surface cold and unyielding. The passage, barely wide enough for a man to pass through, descended into darkness. Its stone walls damp with the weight of centuries. A faint musty odor wafted up, mingling with the scent of old wax from the candelabra Poirot held aloft. His mustache twitched slightly as he contemplated the task ahead, his little gray cells already piecing together the implications of this discovery. A hidden passage suggested not just secrecy, but intent. Someone, long ago, had designed this manor with deception in mind. Poirot adjusted his grip on the candelabra, its flickering flames casting long shadows that danced across the rough-hewn walls. The butler, Mr. Grayson, stood a few paces behind, his face pale and his hands clasped tightly to betray his unease. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, his voice calm, but laced with authority, "you will remain here to ensure no one follows. The secrets of this passage are for Poirot alone to uncover, at least for now." Grayson nodded, though his eyes darted nervously toward the vault. "Of course, sir," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Poirot gave him a reassuring nod before stepping into the passage, his polished shoes clicking softly against the stone floor. The descent was steep, the steps uneven and worn smooth by time. Poirot moved with care, his free hand brushing against the wall for balance. The passage twisted slightly, spiraling downward like the coils of a serpent. He estimated he had descended some 20 feet when the passage leveled out, opening into a small, circular chamber. The air here was colder, heavier, as though the weight of the manor above pressed down upon it. Poirot raised the candelabra, its light revealing a space no larger than a modest drawing room, its walls lined with shelves carved directly into the stone. On these shelves rested an array of artifact pottery shards, small figurines of strange, angular design, and scrolls bound in leather that looked brittle enough to crumble at a touch. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the chamber. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "a treasure trove of history, hidden beneath the feet of the Ashburns." He stepped forward, his gaze drawn to a large stone slab at the center of the room, its surface etched with a map. The map depicted a landscape, unfamiliar to Poirot, with rivers and mountains rendered in sharp, precise lines. At its center was a symbol, a circle bisected by a cross, surrounded by smaller runes that seemed to pulse with meaning. Poirot leaned closer, his mind racing. This was no ordinary map. It was a guide, perhaps to the very relic locked within the vault. As he studied the slab, Poirot's thoughts returned to the conversation with Dr. Felix Moreau, the so-called archaeologist, who had arrived unannounced with tales of an ancient order. Moreau had spoken of a relic tied to a forgotten civilization, guarded by the Ashburns for generations. The map before Poirot seemed to confirm at least part of that story, but the inconsistencies in Moreau's account gnawed at him. A man who claimed expertise yet lingered near the vault. Like a thief, his motives were as murky as the shadows in this chamber. Poirot set the candelabra on the slab, freeing his hands to examine the artifacts. He picked up a small figurine, no taller than his palm, carved from a dark, glossy stone. Its features were alien, with elongated limbs and eyes that seemed to stare through him. "Curio," he muttered, turning it over. The base bore the same symbol as the map, a circle with a cross. He placed the figurine back carefully and moved to the scrolls. Unrolling one with delicate precision, he found it covered in a script he did not recognize. Though certain symbols matched those on the map, a language lost to time, he mused. Yet its meaning persists in this vault. His attention shifted to a wooden chest tucked into a corner, its surface inlaid with ivory and etched with the same vine-like patterns as the vault door. Poirot knelt, inspecting the lock, a simple mechanism, but one that required a key. He patted his pockets, producing a small set of tools he always carried for such occasions. With a few deft movements, the lock clicked open, revealing a collection of papers and a single object wrapped in cloth. Poirot unwrapped it carefully, revealing a fragment of a key. its surface glinting with a faint golden hue. It was 1/3 of a larger piece, its edges jagged as though broken deliberately. "The ceremonial key," he whispered, recalling Clara's confession that she had hidden one part of such a key years ago. Poirot's mind raced. Clara had found one piece and hidden it, fearing its power. This fragment, found in a secret chamber, was likely the second. The third remained elusive, but the map suggested it was within the manor's walls. He tucked the key fragment into his waistcoat pocket, its weight a reminder of the stakes. The papers in the chest were letters written in a hurried hand, detailing the Ashburn family's role as guardians of the relic. One letter, signed by Lord Edmund Ashburn, spoke of a scepter of wisdom that could guide or destroy, depending on the heart of its wielder. Poirot's lips pursed. "A relic of such power," he said softly, "and a family on the brink of ruin. The temptation, it is formidable." He returned to the map, tracing its lines with a finger. The runes surrounding the central symbol seemed to form a sequence, perhaps the combination needed to unlock the vault. But without the third key fragment, the sequence was incomplete. Poirot straightened, his mind turning to the family above. Reginald's desperation to open the vault, Evelyn's cold pragmatism, Charles's ambition, Clara's secrecy, each had a motive, each a piece of the puzzle. And then there was Murrow, whose knowledge of the relic seemed too precise to be mere scholarship. As Poirot prepared to ascend, a faint noise echoed from the passage's soft scrape. Like a footfall. He froze, his hand tightening around the candelabra. "Key Estate, L.A.," he called, his voice sharp. No answer came, but the air seemed to shift, as though someone had retreated into the shadows. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Someone had followed him, or perhaps they had known of the passage all along. He moved swiftly, climbing the steps with a grace that belied his urgency. Emerging into the vault room, he found Grayson exactly where he had left him, though the butler's face was even paler. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. "Did anyone pass this way while I was below?" Grayson shook his head vigorously. "No, sir, not a soul." Poirot studied him, noting the slight tremble in his hands. "Very well," he said, though his mind filed away the butler's demeanor for later scrutiny. He stepped past Grayson, his thoughts already turning to the manor above. The discovery of the passage and the second key fragment had shifted the game, but the board was far from clear. Returning to the main hall, Poirot found the Ashburn family gathered for dinner, the tension palpable. Reginald sat at the head of the table, his face drawn, while Lady Evelyn sipped her wine with an air of detachment. Charles slouched in his chair, his eyes darting to Poirot as he entered, while Clara stared at her plate, her fingers twisting a napkin. Dr. Murrow, seated as a guest, offered a polite smile that did not reach his eyes. Poirot took his place, his demeanor unruffled, though his mind was a whirlwind of deductions. "Monsieur Poirot," Reginald said, breaking the silence, "have you made progress with the vault?" His voice held a note of hope, tinged with desperation. Poirot inclined his head, choosing his words carefully. "The vault, it yields its secrets slowly. But Poirot is not without resources. There are discoveries that suggest the solution is near." He watched their faces, noting Evelyn's slight stiffening, Charles's scowl, and Clara's quick glance at Murrow. The archaeologist, for his part, maintained his composure, though his fingers tapped lightly against his glass dinner, proceeded with strained conversation. The family's attempts at normalcy undermined by the weight of the mystery. Poirot steered the discussion toward the manor's history, probing for reactions. "Lord Ashburn," he said, addressing Reginald, "your grandfather, Lord Edmund, was a man of great foresight. Was he not? To construct such a vault, he must have had much to protect." Reginald nodded, his eyes distant. Edmund was a visionary, but secretive. He spoke little of the vault, only that it was our duty to guard it. Evelyn set down her glass with a sharp clink. "A duty that has cost us dearly," she said, her voice cold. "The manor crumbles, And yet we cling to this relic like a curse, Charles snorted, earning a sharp look from his mother. If it's worth what father claims, we could sell it and be done with this ruin. Clara's head snapped up. You'd sell our heritage, she demanded, her voice trembling. It's not just gold. Charles is our history. Poirot observed the exchange, his mind cataloging every word, every gesture. The family's discord was a mirror of the vault's secrets, fractured, hidden, and dangerous. He turned to Moreau, his tone light but probing. And you, Monsieur Moreau, what do you make of this relic? As an archaeologist, surely you have an opinion on its value? Moreau smiled, though his eyes were wary. Its historical significance is immense, Monsieur Poirot. A museum would be its rightful home, not a private vault. The meal concluded, and Poirot excused himself, claiming a need to review his notes. In truth, he had a destination in mind: the grand chandelier in the ballroom, a towering confection of crystal and brass that had caught his eye earlier. Clara's mention of hiding her key fragment where light dances had lingered in his mind, and the chandelier, with its myriad prisms, seemed a likely candidate. He entered the ballroom alone, the vast space echoing with the faint creak of the manor settling. The chandelier hung high above, its crystals catching the moonlight streaming through tall windows. Poirot dragged a chair beneath it, climbing with a nimbleness that surprised even himself. His fingers searched among the crystals, probing for anything out of place. After several minutes, his hand closed around a small metal object, cold and jagged. He pulled it free, a second key fragment, identical in style to the one from the chamber. Binjao, he murmured, pocketing it. Two pieces of the ceremonial key were now in his possession, but the third remained hidden, and the manor's secrets were far from fully revealed. As he descended, a shadow moved at the edge of the room. Poirot spun, his candelabra raised, but the figure was gone. His heart quickened, not with fear, but with the thrill of the chase. Someone was watching, waiting, perhaps planning. He returned to his room, locking the door behind him, and sat at the desk to examine the key fragments. They fit together perfectly, forming 2/3 of a circular key, its surface etched with the same runes as the map. The third piece would complete the puzzle. But Poirot knew the real challenge lay in unmasking the intentions of those around him. The night deepened, and Poirot lay awake, his mind turning over the clues. The hidden passage, the artifacts, the map, the keys all pointed to a relic of immense power, guarded by a family torn apart by greed, duty, and fear. Moreau's role remained unclear, his knowledge too precise, his presence too convenient. Clara's confession suggested sincerity, but her secrecy raised questions. Charles's ambition was blatant, Evelyn's pragmatism chilling, and Reginald's desperation a catalyst for betrayal. Even Grayson, the butler, with his nervous demeanor, could not be discounted. Poirot rose, unable to sleep, and paced the room. The manor itself seemed to whisper its secrets, its walls heavy with the weight of history. He paused at the window, gazing out at the moonlit grounds. Somewhere in this house, the third key fragment waited, and with it, the truth about the vault. But truth, Poirot knew, was a delicate thing, easily obscured by the shadows of human nature. The next morning, Poirot gathered the family in the library, his demeanor calm but resolute. "Zamis," he began, his eyes sweeping over their faces, "the vault's secrets are closer to being revealed, but I must ask for your cooperation. The key to the vault, it is not one, but 3, and 2 are now in my possession." He held up the fragments, watching their reactions. Reginald's eyes widened, Evelyn's lips tightened, Charles leaned forward, and Clara gasped softly. Moreau's face remained impassive, though his fingers twitched. "I propose a search of the manor," Poirot continued, "to find the final piece. Each of you knows this house better than I. Together, we will uncover what has been hidden." Reluctant nods followed. Though suspicion hung heavy in the air, Poirot assigned each family member a section of the manor, keeping Moreau close under the guise of needing his expertise. The search began, a tense procession through dusty corridors and forgotten rooms. Each person's motives as opaque as the vault's iron door. Hours passed, with no sign of the third fragment. Poirot's patience, however, was infinite, his observation relentless. It was in the drawing room, beneath the ticking of a grandfather clock, that he noticed Grayson's hesitation. The butler lingered near the clock, his hands fidgeting. Poirot approached, his tone conversational. "Monsieur Grayson, this clock, it is a fine piece, a family heirloom, perhaps." Grayson nodded, his eyes avoiding Poirot's. "Yes, sir, very old." Poirot's fingers brushed the clock's ornate carving, finding a hidden catch. A panel sprang open, revealing a small compartment and within it, the third key fragment. Grayson stammered, I didn't know, sir." But Poirot's raised hand silenced him. "You knew enough to fear, Monsieur Grayson. Tell me, who instructed you to hide this?" The butler's shoulders slumped. "It was my duty, sir. Lord Edmund's orders, passed down. I hid it to keep it safe." Poirot nodded. Pocketing the final fragment, the family gathered, their eyes fixed on the three pieces now in his hands. "The vault will open," he said, "but the question remains what lies within, and who among you can be trusted with it." As they moved toward the vault, Poirot's mind was already steps ahead, anticipating the moment when the relic would be revealed and with it, the true face of betrayal. The chapter drew to a close with the Ashburn standing before the vault, the air thick with anticipation. Poirot held the completed key, its runes glinting in the dim light. The lock awaited, but so did the truth, and Poirot knew that the opening of the vault would be only the beginning of the end. Chapter 7. The third key. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand hall of Ashburn Manor, his sharp eyes scanning the faces of the gathered household. The air was thick with tension, the kind that clung to the walls like damp moss, seeping into every corner of the sprawling estate. The vault, that enigmatic steel monolith buried in the manor's underbelly, had become the center of a storm of greed, fear, and secrets. Poirot, with his impeccable mustache and unyielding curiosity, was determined to find the third and final key piece to unlock its mysteries. The scepter of Araxes, a relic of untold power, lay just beyond their reach, and the little Belgian detective knew that the truth was as elusive as the morning mist. Over the manor's gardens, the morning sun filtered through the tall, arched windows, casting long shadows across the polished marble floor. Reginald Ashburn, his face lined with the weight of his family's legacy, stood at the head of the group, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. Lady Evelyn, his wife, maintained her usual air of icy detachment, though Poirot noted the faintest tremor in her fingers as she adjusted her pearl necklace. Charles, the ambitious son, leaned against a column, his eyes darting restlessly, while Clara, the secretive daughter, clutched a small notebook, her expression unreadable. The butler, Mr. Harrow, hovered near the edge of the group, his nervous demeanor betraying a knowledge he had yet to fully reveal. And then there was Dr. Felix Moreau, the so-called archaeologist, whose arrival had stirred the pot of suspicion to a boil. Poirot had caught him red-handed with a scrap of the missing journal page, and now the man's every move was under scrutiny. "Monsieur and Madame," Poirot began, his voice calm but commanding, "we are on the cusp of unraveling the mystery of the locked vault. The pieces of the ceremonial key have been found, one hidden by Mademoiselle Clara, and the other concealed in the chandelier of the dining hall. The third, I am certain, lies within these walls. We must search, Mzamas, with the utmost care and precision. The truth, it hides, but it cannot escape the little gray cells of Hercule Poirot." Reginald nodded, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. "Very well, Poirot. Where do you propose we begin?" Poirot's gaze swept the room, lingering on the ornate grandfather clock that stood sentinel against the far wall. Its steady ticking seemed to mock the urgency of the moment, each swing of the pendulum a reminder of time slipping away. "The manor, it is full of secrets," he said, his voice low. But secrets, they leave traces. We shall divide our efforts. Monsieur Charles, you will search the library with Mademoiselle Clara, Lady Evelyn. You will accompany me to the upper floors, Lord Reginald. You will oversee the staff in the lower levels, including the kitchens and cellars, and Dr. Moreau. Poirot paused, his eyes narrowing as he fixed the archaeologist with a piercing stare. You will remain here, under the watchful eye of Mr. Harrow. No one, I repeat, no one is to approach the vault without my presence. Moreau's lips tightened, but he offered a curt nod. As you wish, Monsieur Poirot. The group dispersed, each member moving with a mix of reluctance and determination. Poirot led Lady Evelyn up the grand staircase, its polished banisters gleaming under the chandelier's light. The upper floors were a labyrinth of corridors, lined with portraits of stern-faced Ashburns whose eyes seemed to follow their every step. Lady Evelyn walked with measured grace, but Poirot sensed her unease. Like a tightly wound spring ready to snap, Lady Evelyn, he said as they entered a guest bedroom, its heavy drapes drawn against the morning light. You have lived in this manor for many years. Surely you have some inkling of where a key might be hidden. Her lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. If I knew, Monsieur Poirot, I would have told you. My husband's family is obsessive about their secrets. I've learned to let them keep them. Poirot tilted his head, studying her. And yet, madam, you are not without your own secrets. N'est-ce pas? You spoke of Charles's ambitions, of his desire for the relic. But what of your own desires? The Ashburn fortune. It is not what it once was, I think. Her eyes flashed, but she quickly regained her composure. You're perceptive, monsieur. Yes, the family is in financial straits. Reginald's investments have faltered, and this manor devours money like a hungry beast. But I assure you, my only concern is for the family's stability. Poirot nodded. Though he filed her words away for later scrutiny, he moved to a heavy oak wardrobe, its carved doors adorned with intricate vines. Running his fingers along the edges, he felt for hidden compartments, a habit born of countless investigations. The wardrobe yielded nothing, but as he turned, he noticed a small, framed watercolor on the wall, a pastoral scene of the manor's gardens, painted with surprising skill. Something about its placement struck him as odd. It hung slightly askew, as if recently disturbed. Madam, he said, gesturing to the painting, this artwork. It is familiar to you. Lady Evelyn glanced at it, her expression neutral. One of Clara's old sketches, I believe. She was quite the artist in her youth. Poirot stepped closer, his fingers brushing the frame. With a gentle tug, he lifted it from the wall, revealing a small, recessed panel behind it. Lady Evelyn's breath caught, a sound so faint it might have gone unnoticed by a less observant man. Poirot pressed the panel, and it clicked open, revealing a velvet-lined niche. Inside lay a small, intricately carved metal piece, the third part of the ceremonial key. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, holding the piece up to the light. Its surface gleamed with symbols matching those on the other two pieces, a testament to the craftsmanship of a bygone era. The final piece, madam. And yet, I wonder, how did it come to rest here, behind your daughter's painting? Lady Evelyn's face paled, but she recovered quickly. I had no idea. Perhaps Clara hid it there. Perhaps, Poirot said, his tone neutral, but his mind racing. He slipped the key piece into his pocket, his thoughts turning to the butler, Mr. Harrow, whose nervous behavior had caught his attention earlier. The man had been with the family for decades, a silent observer to their dramas. Could he have known about this hiding place? Or was Lady Evelyn's surprise merely an act? They returned to the grand hall, where the others were waiting. Charles and Clara had found nothing in the library, their faces flushed with frustration. Reginald reported that the staff had scoured the cellars but uncovered only cobwebs and forgotten wine bottles. Poirot held up the third key piece, and a collective gasp rippled through the group. The key is complete, he announced, his voice steady. Now, We shall see what secrets the vault holds. The group descended to the vault, a cavernous chamber buried beneath the manor. Its steel door loomed before them, its surface etched with the same symbols as the key pieces. Poirot handed the assembled key to Reginald, who inserted it into the lock with trembling hands. The mechanism clicked, a series of gears grinding within the door. Slowly, it swung open, revealing a small, dimly lit chamber. At its center stood a golden chest, its surface adorned with jewels that caught the torchlight like stars. Poirot stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the chest. "The scepter of Araxes," he said softly, recalling Moreau's tale of the ancient order, a relic of great power and great danger. Before anyone could move, a sudden commotion erupted. Dr. Moreau, who had been lingering at the back of the group, lunged toward the chest, his face twisted with desperation. "It's mine," he shouted, his hands outstretched. But Poirot was faster with a swift motion. He stepped into Moreau's path, his cane raised like a barrier. "Non, monsieur," he said, his voice cold. "You will not touch it." Moreau froze, his eyes wild. The butler, Mr. Harrow, seized the opportunity, grabbing Moreau's arms and pinning them behind his back. "Enough of this," Harrow snapped, his usual timidity replaced by a surprising firmness. Poirot turned to Reginald. "Monsieur, open the chest. Let us see what lies within." Reginald hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside lay the scepter of Araxes, its golden shaft encrusted with rubies and emeralds, its head carved into the shape of a serpent's eye. The room fell silent, each person transfixed by the artifact's beauty and its implied power. Poirot's gaze swept the group, noting their reactions. Reginald's eyes shone with reverence, as if beholding a sacred relic. Lady Evelyn's face was a mask of fear, her hands clenched at her sides. Charles's expression was one of naked greed, his fingers twitching as if longing to seize the scepter. Clara, meanwhile, stared in awe, her notebook forgotten in her hand. And Moreau, still restrained by Harrow, looked like a man whose dreams had crumbled. "The scepter of Araxes," Poirot said, breaking the silence. "It is said to grant wisdom to those who wield it with purity, but ruin to those consumed by greed. And yet, Mzamis, I sense that the true danger lies not in the scepter itself, but in the hearts of those who stand before it." As the group absorbed his words, Poirot's mind raced. The vault was open, the relic revealed. But the mystery was far from solved. The cufflink marks still pointed to Charles or perhaps Clara. The stolen journal, the hidden passage, and now the third key found behind Clara's painting all suggested a deeper conspiracy. And then there was Lady Evelyn, whose composure had a calculating mind. Poirot's little gray cells hummed with possibilities. But one thing was certain. The betrayer was among them, and he would unmask them before the night was through. The hours that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Poirot questioned each member of the household, piecing together their movements and motives. Charles admitted to searching the library, but denied any involvement with the cufflink. Clara confessed to hiding the first key piece, but swore she knew nothing of the third. Reginald spoke of his grandfather's obsession with the scepter, while Lady Evelyn maintained her story of ignorance. Mr. Harrow, under Poirot's relentless probing, admitted to overhearing conversations about the vault, but claimed he had acted only to protect the family. As evening fell, Poirot gathered everyone in the drawing room, the scepter safely locked back in the vault under his supervision. He paced before the fireplace, its flames casting shadows that danced across the walls. "Mzamis," he said, "the third key has been found, and the vault has been opened. But the true mystery remains. Who among you seeks to betray the Ashburn legacy?" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The cufflink, marked C, was found near the vault, the journal, stolen from the library, the key piece, hidden behind a painting by Mademoiselle Clara. These are not accidents. They are the threads of a tapestry, woven by a hand that seeks to control the scepter's power. Charles shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tight. You're accusing me, aren't you? That cufflink could belong to anyone. Poirot raised a hand. Patience, Monsieur Charles. The truth, it reveals itself in time. He turned to Lady Evelyn. Madam, you spoke of financial ruin. The scepter. It could fetch a fortune, could it not? Enough to save the manor, to restore the Ashburn name. Her eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting I would betray my own family? Not suggesting, madam, Poirot said softly. Observing. He moved to Clara, who clutched her notebook like a shield. Mademoiselle, you hid the first key piece to protect the scepter. But the third, behind your painting, how did it come to be there? Clara's eyes widened. I swear, I didn't know. Someone must have placed it there to frame me. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. He turned to Moreau, who stood sullenly by the door. And you, Monsieur Moreau, you came to this manor under false pretenses, claiming knowledge of the vault's origins. But your true purpose was to steal the scepter, was it not? Moreau sneered. You have no proof au contraire, Poirot said, producing the scrap of journal page from his pocket. This was found in your room, a piece of the puzzle you thought to keep for yourself. The room erupted in accusations, each voice rising over the others. Poirot raised his hands, silencing them. Enough, the truth. It is close. But to find it, we must return to the vault. There, I believe, the final piece of this puzzle will reveal itself. The group followed him back to the vault, their footsteps echoing in the stone corridors. Poirot knelt before the golden chest, examining its lock. The scepter is safe, he said, but the vault holds one more secret, a mechanism, perhaps, that only the true guardian of the scepter would know. He pressed a series of symbols on the chest. Guided by the journal's code, a soft click sounded, and a hidden drawer sprang open, revealing a small, leather-bound book. Poirot opened it, his eyes scanning the pages. The final testament of Lord Edmund Ashburn, he said. It speaks of a guardian, chosen to protect the scepter from those who would misuse it, and it names the one who hid the third key. He looked up, his gaze locking onto Lady Evelyn. Madam, it was you. The room froze. Lady Evelyn's face drained of color, her composure crumbling. That's absurd, she stammered. Why would I? Because, Poirot interrupted, you knew the family's ruin was imminent. You had the key to ensure the scepter could be sold, to save the manor. But you underestimated the loyalty of your daughter, who sought to protect it, and the greed of Monsieur Moreau, who sought to steal it. Reginald stepped forward, his voice trembling. Evelyn, is this true? She hesitated. Then her shoulders slumped. I did it for us, she whispered, for the family. The scepter. It was our only hope. Poirot shook his head. The scepter's power is not in its wealth, madam, but in its legacy. To sell it would be to betray all that the Ashburns have stood for. Clara stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Father, we can find another way. The scepter must stay here, where it belongs. Reginald nodded slowly, his face a mask of grief. You're right, Clara. Poirot, what do we do now? Poirot closed the book, slipping it into his pocket. The scepter will remain in the vault, under lock and key. Monsieur Moreau, you will be handed over to the authorities, and as for you, Lady Evelyn, he paused, his expression softening. The heart, it sometimes leads us astray. But there is time yet for redemption. The group dispersed, leaving Poirot alone in the vault. He ran his fingers along the golden chest, his mind replaying the case's twists and turns. The scepter of Araxes was safe, but the scars it had left on the Ashburn family would not fade easily. As he sealed the vault, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The mystery was solved, the betrayer unmasked, and the legacy preserved for now. The manor settled into an uneasy silence as Poirot prepared to depart. He had one final task, to ensure the scepter's safety. He met with Clara in the library, handing her the leather-bound book. Mademoiselle, he said, you are the guardian now. Keep the scepter hidden. and let its secrets rest. Clara nodded, her eyes resolute. I will, Monsieur Poirot, thank you. As he stepped into the waiting carriage, Poirot glanced back at Ashburn Manor, its towers silhouetted against the setting sun. The vault was sealed, the mystery resolved, but the human heart, he knew, would always hold its own secrets. With the tip of his hat, he signaled the driver, and the carriage rolled away, carrying Hercule Poirot back to the world beyond. Chapter 8. The relic reveal of the heavy iron door of the vault groaned as it swung open, its hinges protesting after decades of stillness. A faint draft of stale air wafted out, carrying with it the scent of dust and time. The Ashburn family lord, Reginald, Lady Evelyn, Charles, and Clara stood frozen in the dimly lit corridor, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of the electric sconces mounted on the stone walls. Hercule Poirot, standing slightly to the side, observed their expressions with his characteristic precision, his sharp green eyes darting from one to another, cataloging every twitch, every glance, every subtle shift in demeanor. The golden chest within the vault gleamed faintly, its intricate engravings catching the light, promising secrets and power. Beside Poirot, Dr. Felix Moreau shifted uneasily, his hands clasped tightly behind his back, his scholarly facade barely concealing a nervous energy. Poirot stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking softly on the stone floor. "Mzamas," he said, his voice calm, but carrying the weight of authority. "The moment of truth has arrived. The vault, so long a mystery, now yields its treasure. But I caution you, let us proceed with care. The contents of this chest may hold more than mere wealth." Reginald, his silver hair catching the light, nodded solemnly. His hands trembled slightly as he approached the chest, his eyes fixed on it with a reverence that bordered on worship. "The scepter of Araxes," he murmured, almost to himself. "My grandfather spoke of it as if it were a living thing, a guardian of our family's destiny." Lady Evelyn, her face a mask of composure, stood rigidly beside her husband. Her dark eyes, however, betrayed a flicker of unease, darting toward the chest and then away, as if she feared what it might reveal. Charles, leaning against the wall, with a forced nonchalance, chewed his lip, his gaze locked on the chest with an intensity that spoke of ambition. Clara, clutching the third key part they had retrieved from the grandfather clock, stood closest to Poirot, her expression a mix of awe and trepidation. Moreau cleared his throat, stepping forward with an air of authority. "As an archaeologist, I must insist that whatever lies within this chest is of immense historical value. It belongs in a museum where it can be studied and preserved for future generations." Poirot's mustache twitched slightly, a sign of his amusement or skepticism, or perhaps both. "Monsieur Moreau, your passion for history is commendable, but let us first see what we are dealing with. The truth. It often hides behind the grandest of claims." Reginald, with a nod to Poirot, reached for the chest's lid. The family held their breath as he lifted it, the hinges creaking faintly. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay the scepter of Araxes. It was a magnificent object, no longer than a man's forearm, crafted from gold that seemed to glow with an inner warmth. Its surface was encrusted with jewels, rubies, sapphires, and emeralds that caught the light and scattered it in a dazzling array of colors. At its head was a large, multifaceted opal, its surface swirling with hues of blue, green, and violet like a storm trapped in stone. The scepter's design was intricate, with carvings of serpents and stars winding around its shaft, suggesting a craftsmanship that belonged to an era long forgotten. "My God," Reginald whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "it's real." After all these years, Evelyn's breath caught, her hand rising to her chest as if to steady herself. "It's beautiful," she said, but her tone carried a note of fear, as if beauty itself could be a threat. Charles stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "It's worth a fortune," he said, his voice low but tinged with excitement. "More than enough to what, Monsieur Charles?" Poirot interjected, his tone sharp. To satisfy ambition, or perhaps to restore the fortunes of a family on the brink of ruin? Charles flushed, his jaw tightening. I only meant it could secure our future. Clara, still clutching the key part, reached out tentatively, as if drawn to the scepter. It's more than wealth, she said, softly. Grandfather's journal said it grants wisdom, but only to those who are worthy. If it falls into the wrong hands, Moreau interrupted, his voice rising. This artifact belongs to the world, not to one family. The Order of Varaxes entrusted your ancestors with its safekeeping, but its true value lies in its historical significance. I must insist we contact the proper authorities immediately. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his gaze fixed on Moreau. The Order of Varaxes, you say? A fascinating tale, monsieur. And yet, I wonder how is it that you, an outsider, knows so much about a secret guarded by the Ashburns for generations? Moreau stiffened, his smile faltering. I've studied the history of the Order extensively. My research, your research, or your employer's interests? Poirot's voice was soft, but it cut through the air like a blade. You see, I have made inquiries. Monsieur Moreau, your credentials as an archaeologist are, shall we say, less than impeccable. A certain collector, a rival of the Ashburns, has been known to employ men of your talents to acquire artifacts of this nature. The room fell silent, the weight of Poirot's accusation hanging heavy. Moreau's face paled, his hands clenching into fists. That's preposterous, he stammered. I am here to protect the scepter, not to steal it. Then perhaps you can explain this, Poirot said, producing a folded scrap of paper from his pocket. It was the missing page from Edmund Ashburn's journal, found in Moreau's room during a discreet search. Poirot unfolded it, revealing a diagram of the vault's lock mechanism and a note scrawled in a hurried hand. Deliver to V by midnight, V, Reginald asked, his voice trembling with anger. Who is this V? Moreau's composure cracked, his eyes darting toward the exit. This is a misunderstanding, he said, taking a step back. I found the page in the library. Nothing more. Poirot's mustache twitched again. A curious coincidence, none, that you, a stranger, should find a page so critical to the vault's secret and yet keep it hidden from those who trusted you. Before Moreau could respond, Charles lunged forward, his face flushed with fury. You're a thief, he shouted, grabbing Moreau by the collar. You thought you could waltz in here and take what's ours. Charles, stop, Clara cried, stepping between them. The scepter, still lying in the open chest, seemed to pulse with an almost palpable energy. Drawing every eye in the room dot in the chaos, Moreau broke free, shoving Charles aside and making a dash for the chest. His fingers closed around the scepter, yanking it from its velvet bed. This belongs to history, he shouted, his voice wild with desperation. Poirot, with a speed that belied his fastidious appearance, moved swiftly. He seized a heavy candelabrum from a nearby table and swung it with precision. Striking Moreau's wrist, the scepter clattered to the floor, skidding across the stone. Clara dove for it, cradling it protectively as Moreau stumbled back, clutching his hand. Enough. Poirot's voice rang out, commanding the room. Monsieur Moreau, your game is over. You will remain here until the authorities arrive. And you, Mzamas. He turned to the Ashburns, must decide what to do with this relic. It is not merely an object of wealth, but a burden of responsibility. Reginald, his face ashen, nodded slowly. You're right, Poirot. This scepter has torn my family apart for generations. Perhaps it's time we let it go. Evelyn's eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her face. Reginald, no, we need it. You know our situation. Enough, Evelyn. Reginald snapped, his voice firm for the first time. We've clung to this curse for too long. It ends now. Charles, still breathing heavily from his scuffle with Moreau, shook his head. You're all fools. That scepter could save us. Clara, holding the scepter tightly, looked at Poirot. What do we do, Monsieur Poirot, if it's cursed? How do we protect it? Poirot's gaze softened, but his voice remained steady. The curse, Mademoiselle Clara, lies not in the scepter itself, but in the hearts of those who seek it for selfish gain. Your grandfather's journal spoke of wisdom, did it not? Wisdom is not found in possession, but in understanding. I suggest you secure the scepter once more, but this time, let its secret be known only to those who can be trusted. As the family absorbed his words, Poirot turned to Moreau, who was now slumped against the wall. Defeated. As for you, monsieur, I suspect your employer will be most displeased to learn of your failure, but that is a matter for the police. The butler, who had been hovering nervously at the edge of the group, stepped forward. Shall the first telephone the authorities, sir? Poirot nodded. And quickly. The night is not yet over, and there is much to be done. As the butler hurried off, Poirot's eyes returned to the scepter in Clara's hands. Its jewels glinted in the dim light, a silent reminder of the greed and ambition it had inspired. But there was something else in the air now, a sense of resolution, however fragile. The Ashburns, fractured though they were, stood together in the vault's shadow, their futures uncertain, but their secrets laid bare. Poirot's little gray cells, however, were far from satisfied. He had secured the scepter, unmasked Moreau, and restored a semblance of order. But a nagging thought lingered. The cufflink marquee, the stolen journal, the hidden motives. There was still a thread in this tapestry that remained unpulled. Someone in this room, he suspected, had not yet revealed their true intentions. As the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the corridor, signaling the butler's return, Poirot's gaze swept over the family once more. The relic is revealed, he murmured to himself. But the heart of this mystery remains hidden. For now, the vault, its door still open, seemed to watch in silence, guarding its secrets as it had for decades. And Hercule Poirot, ever the seeker of truth, knew that the final chapter of this case was yet to be written. Chapter 9. The betrayer in Masquet's grand drawing room of Ashburn Manor was steeped in an oppressive silence, broken only by the faint crackle of the fire in the hearth. The heavy velvet curtains were drawn against the evening chill, casting long shadows across the room's ornate furnishings. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, his small, meticulous figure commanding the attention of the gathered occupants. His mustache was impeccably groomed, his eyes sharp and gleaming with the intensity of a man who had unraveled a knot of secrets. Around him sat the Ashburn family, Lord Reginald, his face pale and drawn, Lady Evelyn, her composure a brittle mask, Charles, slouched in a chair with a scowl, and Clara, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes darting nervously. Dr. Felix Moreau, the archaeologist whose credentials were now under scrutiny, stood near the doorway, his posture tense, as if poised to flee. The butler, Mr. Grayson, lingered at the edge of the room, his nervous fidgeting betraying his unease. Poirot adjusted his cuffs, a deliberate gesture, and began to speak, his voice clear and measured. Mesdames et messieurs, we have come to the denouement of this most curious affair. The mystery of the locked vault, the scepter of Araxes, and the web of deceit woven around it shall now be laid bare. I, Hercule Poirot, have observed. I have listened, and I have employed the little gray cells to uncover the truth. He paused, letting his words settle over the room like a fine dust. The firelight glinted off the crystal chandelier, casting fractured beams across the faces of his audience. Let us begin with the facts. He continued. The vault, locked for decades, contains a relic of immense value and, if the legends are to be believed, a curse that brings ruin to those driven by greed. The scepter of Araxes, hidden by Lord Edmund Ashburn, was to be protected from unworthy hands. Yet, someone among us sought to claim it, not for honor, but for profit. Reginald shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his fingers tightening around the armrest of his chair. Poirot, surely you don't mean to accuse one of my family? His voice was strained, a plea more than a question. Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. Patience, Lord Ashburn. All will be revealed. Let us first consider the clues. The monogram cufflink, marked with AC, found near the vault after the midnight intruder's escape. The stolen journal, taken during the blackout. The hidden passage, the ceremonial keys, and the motives that swirl around this manor like a storm. Each piece fits into the puzzle, but only when viewed with clarity. He turned his gaze to Charles, whose scowl deepened. Monsieur Charles, you have been most vocal in your ambition. You spoke of the scepter's value, of how it could secure your future. The cufflink, it would seem, points directly to you. Charles shot to his feet, his face flushed. This is absurd, I told you. Poirot, the cufflink could belong to anyone. Clara's been sneaking around, hiding things. She's the one you should be questioning. Clara gasped, her eyes widening. Charles, how dare you? I've only ever wanted to protect the scepter, to honor grandfather's wishes. Enough. Poirot's voice cut through the rising tension. The cufflink is but one thread. Let us examine the journal. It was stolen from my room after I deciphered its code. A code that pointed to the vault's unlocking mechanism. Who had the opportunity? Who had the motive? He turned slowly, his eyes scanning each face. Lady Evelyn, you were in the library shortly before the blackout. You expressed distrust of your son, fearing his greed. Yet, I wonder, was your concern for the family's honor or something else? Evelyn's lips tightened, her hands folding neatly in her lap. I have nothing to hide, Monsieur Poirot. My only wish is to see this family preserved. Poirot nodded, but his eyes gleamed with skepticism. And you, Dr. Moreau, he said, turning to the archaeologist. You arrived with tales of an ancient order, claiming knowledge of the scepter's origins. Yet, I found a scrap of the missing journal page in your room, hidden beneath a false bottom in your valise. A curious place for an innocent man to keep such a thing. Moreau's face paled, but he forced a laugh. A misunderstanding, Monsieur Poirot. I found that scrap by chance and meant to return it. My interest is purely academic. Academic? Poirot's tone was sharp, or perhaps mercenary. I have made inquiries, discreetly. Through my contacts, the name Felix Moreau is known, in certain circles not as an archaeologist, but as an agent for a collector who deals in rare artifacts on the black market. A murmur rippled through the room. Reginald's eyes widened, and Clara clutched the arms of her chair. Moreau took a step back, his hands raised. This is preposterous. I am a scholar, not a thief. Poirot ignored the protest, pacing slowly. Let us reconstruct the events. The vault, locked for generations, became the center of this drama. When Lord Reginald invited me here, why? Because he feared someone was close to unlocking its secrets. The coded journal, written by Lord Edmund, revealed the need for 3 ceremonial keys. We found them, one hidden by Clara, one in the chandelier, and one in the grandfather clock, guarded by Mr. Grayson. But the journal's theft, the midnight intruder, and the cufflink suggest a deeper conspiracy. He stopped, facing the group. The cufflink was a distraction, planted to cast suspicion on Charles. The journal's theft was no random act. It was taken to prevent me from uncovering the full truth. And the hidden passage behind the vault, it was known to someone in this house, someone who planned to bypass the lock entirely. Clara's voice trembled. But who, Monsieur Poirot? Who would do this? Poirot's eyes softened as he looked at her. Mademoiselle Clara, your heart is true. You sought to protect the scepter, to honor your grandfather's legacy. You had the first key, fearing its power. But others saw opportunity where you saw duty. He turned to Lady Evelyn, his expression hardening. Lady Evelyn, you have played your role well. The devoted wife, the guardian of the family's name. Yet, I have observed your actions, your words, and the subtle cracks in your facade. You spoke of financial ruin, of the estate's debts. You knew the scepter could be sold to save the family from collapse. It was you who orchestrated the theft of the journal. You who planted the cufflink to divert suspicion. And you who knew of the hidden passage, learned from years of studying the manor's secrets. Evelyn's composure shattered, her face draining of color. This is outrageous. You have no proof. Poirot held up a hand, producing a small, folded piece of paper from his pocket. This, madam, is the missing journal page, found not in Dr. Moreau's room, but in the lining of your sewing basket. I took the liberty of searching your quarters while you were occupied this morning. The page contains a map of the hidden passage, annotated in your hand. Reginald staggered to his feet, his voice hoarse. Evelyn, is this true? Evelyn's eyes darted around the room, seeking an escape, but Poirot's steady gaze held her. Pen, you plan to sell the scepter to a buyer arranged through Dr. Moreau, he continued. Your pragmatism, admirable in its cold logic, drove you to betray your family's trust. You used Moreau's greed, promising him a share. While intending to keep the bulk of the profit for yourself, Moreau lunged toward the door. But Grayson, surprisingly swift, blocked his path. Not so fast, sir, the butler said, his voice firm. Evelyn rose, her hands trembling. I did it for us, Reginald. The estate is crumbling. Our debt's insurmountable. The scepter was our only hope. Reginald sank back into his chair, his face a mask of despair. You've broken us, Evelyn, not the debts, but this betrayal. Clara stood, tears in her eyes. How could you, mother? Grandfather trusted us to protect it, not sell it like common thieves. Charles, silent until now, laughed bitterly. And you all thought I was the greedy one. At least I was honest about wanting the money. Poirot raised a hand for silence. The scepter of Araxes is safe, for now. I have ensured it is locked. Back in the vault, under guard. Dr. Moreau, you will face justice for your part in this scheme. Lady Evelyn, your fate rests with your family and the law. But I urge you, Lord Ashburn, to consider mercy. The human heart is complex, driven by fear as much as greed. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady despite her tears. I'll protect the scepter. Monsieur Poirot, I'll make sure it stays hidden, as grandfather intended. Poirot nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. You have the strength. Mademoiselle, the legacy is in good hands, as the family absorbed the weight of the revelations. Poirot turned to leave the room, his work done. The fire crackled, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the ghosts of secrets past. The manor, once alive with intrigue, now felt heavy with the aftermath of truth. Poirot paused at the door, glancing back at the fractured family. The little gray cells, they do not fail, he murmured, before stepping into the hall. Leaving the Ashburns to mend their broken bonds, the following morning, the manor was quiet. The storm of the previous night having settled into an uneasy calm. Poirot sat in the library, sipping a tisane prepared by Grayson, who had proven himself loyal despite his earlier fears. Clara joined him, her expression resolute. Monsieur Poirot, she said, I've decided to stay at the manor. I'll catalog grandfather's letters, learn more about the scepter's history. It's my duty now. Poirot inclined his head. A wise choice, mademoiselle. The past holds lessons, but it is the future you must shape. She hesitated, then asked, do you think mother will ever forgive herself? Poirot's eyes softened. Forgiveness, it begins within. She acted out of desperation, not malice. In time, perhaps, she will find peace. Clara nodded, her gaze drifting to the window, where the morning mist clung to the manor's grounds. And Charles, he left this morning, said he wanted nothing more to do with us. Charles seeks his own path, Poirot said. Sometimes, distance brings clarity. He may return, or he may not. But you, Clara, you are the heart of this family. Now, she smiled faintly, a spark of determination in her eyes. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot, for everything. As Poirot prepared to depart, Reginald approached him in the foyer, his face etched with sorrow but also gratitude. You've saved us, Poirot, in more ways than one. The scepter is secure, and though our family is wounded, we will heal. Poirot bowed slightly. It is my duty, Lord Ashburn, to bring order where there is chaos. Keep the vault sealed, and let the scepter's legend fade into myth. With that, Poirot stepped into the waiting car, the manor's imposing silhouette fading behind him as the driver navigated the winding road. He leaned back, his mind already turning to the next puzzle, the next mystery that would challenge his little gray cells. The scepter of Araxes was safe, the betrayer unmasked, and Ashburn Manor, for now, at peace. The journey back to London was quiet, the countryside rolling past and a blur of green and gold. Poirot opened his notebook, reviewing the case's details. With his usual precision, the cufflink, the journal, the hidden passage all had played their part in revealing the truth. Yet, it was the human element, the interplay of greed, duty, and redemption, that lingered in his thoughts. The Ashburns, like so many families, were bound by their secrets, but also by their capacity to endure. As the train station came into view, Poirot closed his notebook, satisfied. The mystery of the locked vault was solved, but the greater mystery of the human heart remained, as always, an enigma to be pondered. Chapter 10. The vault's final secret. Hercule Poirot stood on the gravel path, leading away from Ashburn Manor, his neatly polished shoes crunching softly against the stones. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew-kissed grass and the distant hum of a world awakening beyond the estate's iron gates. His suitcase rested beside him, a modest companion to his impeccable gray suit and meticulously groomed mustache. The manor loomed behind him, its ivy-clad walls and towering chimneys casting long shadows in the early light. The case of the locked vault was closed, yet Poirot's mind, ever restless, churned with the intricacies of human nature, he had unraveled. He adjusted his hat, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon, where a sleek black car approached to ferry him to the train station. The resolution of the mystery, the scepter of Araxes, the betrayals, the hidden passages had left him both satisfied and pensive. The Ashburn family, fractured by greed and secrecy, would never be the same. Yet, as always, it was the subtleties, the unspoken truths, that lingered in his thoughts. Clara's final revelation about the vault's second chamber had stirred something in him, a reminder that even the most intricate puzzles often hid one last piece. As the car pulled up, the driver, a young man with a deferential nod, opened the door. "Monsieur Poirot, your transport to the station," he said, his voice tinged with a local accent. "Merci, my friend," Poirot replied, his tone polite but distant, his mind still tethered to the manor. He settled into the back seat, the leather creaking softly, and allowed his thoughts to drift back to the events of the previous night. The drawing room had been heavy with tension, the air thick with the weight of secrets laid bare. Lady Evelyn's confession, delivered with a chilling calm, had shattered the fragile unity of the Ashburn family. Her plan to sell the scepter of Araxes to save the estate from financial ruin had been meticulous, almost admirable in its cold pragmatism. Yet it was her betrayal of her own family, her husband, Reginald, who revered the relic, her daughter, Clara, who sought to protect it, and her son, Charles, who coveted it for his own ambitions, that had left the deepest wound. Poirot had stood at the center of the room, his small frame commanding attention as he unraveled the threads of the mystery. The monogram cufflink mark C had been a deliberate misdirection, planted by Evelyn to cast suspicion on Charles. The stolen journal, the coded messages, the hidden passage all had been part of her scheme to control the narrative and secure the scepter. But Poirot's little gray cells, as he so fondly called them, had seen through the deception. The cufflink, he deduced, had been taken from Charles's wardrobe and placed near the vault to mislead. The journal's theft during the blackout had been Evelyn's doing, her sleight of hand unnoticed in the chaos. Reginald had collapsed into an armchair, his face ashen, his hands trembling as he processed his wife's betrayal. "Evelyn," he had whispered, "how could you?" His voice, usually resonant with authority, had cracked, revealing a man broken not by the loss of wealth but by the erosion of trust. Clara, standing by the fireplace, had clutched the edge of the mantel, her knuckles white. Her eyes, usually soft and introspective, burned with a mix of anger and resolve. "The scepter belongs to the family," she had said, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "It's our duty to protect it, not to sell it like some trinket." Charles, ever the opportunist, had scoffed, his face flushed with indignation. "Duty? The family's bankrupt. Clara, that scepter could have saved us." He had stormed out, slamming the door behind him. His parting words a renunciation of his inheritance. "Keep your cursed relic. I'm done with this madness." Poirot had watched the scene unfold, his expression unreadable but his mind cataloging every gesture, every word. Evelyn's composure had faltered only once, when Poirot revealed the scrap of the missing journal, page he had found in Dr. Felix Moreau's room. Moreau, the so-called archaeologist, had been Evelyn's accomplice, hired to lend credibility to her plan while secretly working for a rival collector. Poirot's trap spreading the false rumor that he had cracked the vault's code had flushed Moreau out, leading to his failed attempt to flee. The scepter, now safely locked back in the vault, had been the catalyst for it all. Its golden surface, encrusted with emeralds and sapphires, gleamed with an almost otherworldly allure. The legend of Araxes, the forgotten civilization that had crafted it, spoke of wisdom granted to those pure of heart and ruin to those consumed by greed. Poirot had seen the truth of the legend in the Ashburn's eyes, Reginald's reverence, Evelyn's fear, Charles's avarice, Clara's awe. The car jolted slightly as it turned onto the main road, pulling Poirot from his reverie. He glanced out the window, the rolling countryside of England unfolding in shades of green and gold. The manor was now a distant silhouette, its secret sealed within its stone walls. Yet Clara's final revelation, shared in the quiet of the library after the family's confrontation, lingered in his mind. She had approached him as the others dispersed, her footsteps soft against the polished floor. "Monsieur Poirot," she had said, her voice barely above a whisper, "there is something more you should know. The vault it holds a second chamber." Poirot had raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "A second chamber, mademoiselle. And what does it contain?" Clara had hesitated, her fingers twisting the edge of her shawl. "Letters," she said at last. "From my great-grandfather, Lord Edmund Ashburn. He wrote of the scepter's curse and how it could be lifted. An act of selflessness, he called it, a sacrifice to prove one's worth." Poirot had leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "And you believe these letters, mademoiselle?" "I do," she had replied, her voice firm. "I found them years ago, hidden behind a panel in the vault's antechamber. I didn't tell anyone, not father, not mother, not Charles. I was afraid of what they might do." "And now?" Poirot had asked, his tone gentle but probing. "Now," Clara had said, "I want to honor my great-grandfather's wishes. The scepter must stay hidden, protected, not for wealth, but for what it represents. I'll guard it. Monsieur Poirot, I swear it." Poirot had studied her, noting the determination in her eyes, the subtle shift from the secretive girl he had first met to a woman resolved to carry her family's burden. "Very well, mademoiselle," he had said, "but be vigilant. The heart, it is a fragile thing, easily swayed by temptation." She had nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot, for everything." The train station came into view, a modest structure with a single platform and a ticket booth. The car slowed, and the driver stepped out to retrieve Poirot's suitcase. "Here we are, sir," he said, tipping his cap. Poirot stepped onto the platform, the cool breeze tugging at his coat. He glanced back at the road, half expecting to see the manor one last time. But it was gone, swallowed by the hills. The weight of the case felt heavier now, not from its contents but from the knowledge it carried, the knowledge of human hearts laid bare. As he waited for the train, Poirot's thoughts turned to the scepter. Its beauty was undeniable, but so was its danger. The legend of Araxes, with its promise of wisdom and threat of ruin, was not merely a tale. It was a mirror, reflecting the desires and fears of those who sought it. Reginald had seen it as a legacy, Evelyn as a lifeline, Charles as a prize, Clara as a duty, and Moreau a means to an end. Nothing more. The train's whistle pierced the air, and Poirot straightened, his hand resting on the handle of his suitcase. He boarded the carriage, settling into a window seat as the train began to move. The landscape blurred past, a tapestry of fields and villages. But Poirot's mind remained fixed on the manor. Clara's vow to protect the scepter was noble, but Poirot knew the world too well. Greed, like a shadow, could creep back, even into the purest hearts. He had advised her to keep the scepter hidden, to let the vault remain sealed. The letters she had found, those words of Edmund Ashburn, offered a path to redemption and an act of selflessness. But such acts were rare, and the scepter's allure was strong. The train rattled on, and Poirot allowed himself a small smile. The case was solved, the mystery unraveled. The scepter of Araxes was safe, for now, locked away in its vault with its secrets and its curse. The Ashburn family would carry on, scarred but perhaps stronger for it. Clara, he believed, would rise to the challenge. She had the strength, the resolve to honor her great-grandfather's legacy. As the manor faded from his thoughts, Poirot opened his notebook, his pen moving with precision across the page. He jotted down a final note, a reminder to himself: the heart seeks what it desires, but only wisdom can temper its folly. He closed the notebook, his fingers brushing the leather cover, and leaned back in his seat. The train carried him onward, toward London, toward new mysteries. Ashburn Manor, with its locked vault and its fractured family, was behind him, yet the echo of its secrets, the weight of its truths, would linger, a testament to the enduring puzzle of the human soul. Hercule Poirot, satisfied with a case well solved, closed his eyes and let the rhythm of the train lull him into a moment of rare peace.